Hello, good morning. It's the 8th of December 2012 and the time is just past 9:30 a.m. This is Newsfile, live from your election headquarters. You would notice we're not in our traditional studio. We're here at your election headquarters on Joy 99.7 FM in Accra and our affiliate stations across the country. We're on the Joy News channel on Multi-TV, and that footprint is all over Africa. And you can be watching us all over Africa on the Joy News channel on Multi-TV. Online as well, you can be watching us on multitvworld.com/streams. We thank you for joining us. It's the day after the very first day of the elections. In a number of polling stations and constituencies across the country, the election is still continuing following an adjournment where there were delays and where the biometric verification machines failed. But the morning after, and as the results come in, we're being joined by guests who are going to help us do some analysis of all that has happened so far, what is happening with the results that are being collated now as we speak to you, and what's happening with the areas where there's still voting and collation ongoing. Now, here at your election headquarters, there are about three major things that we do. Number one, when the results are collated at the collation center, we share them with you live on radio and on television. You can just hear them and have a fair idea what's going on. But number two, we proceed to get a verification from the EC collation centers that these numbers have now been certified by the representatives of the various parties. Number three, when we are done with that, we enter them into what we call our collation system here, put together by Sambus Geospatial in partnership with the technical department of the Multimedia Group. Now, looking at that collated system of verified results, I can tell you that there are about 55 constituencies that have reported their numbers right now. Shortly, we'll give you details of which constituencies these are, what their numbers are today, and what those numbers have been over the years. But the big picture for the presidential election, for which many of you are interested in, is that for these 55 constituencies that are in, the NDC's President John Dramani Mahama is leading with 52.23%, and the MPP's Nana Addo Akufo-Addo is trailing with 46.37%. But the important thing is to ask, which constituencies are these? What has been their trending over the years? That's part of a discussion we'll be doing perhaps in the second hour of this extended version of Newsfile. Let me introduce my guest to you. Abdul Malik Kwekubako Jr. is with the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Dr. Clement Apak is with the Forum of Governance and Justice. I'm happy to have with us Dr. Pesa White. He is a research fellow at the Institute of African Studies, and Egbert Fable is a legal practitioner. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us on Newsfile. I'll start perhaps to my extreme left. Egbert, on the morning of the 8th, as you hear, for instance, these big numbers, 55 constituencies that we're going to go into and tell you where they're coming from, and you hear the split, and as you followed what has happened yesterday up till now, what are your general impressions?
Well, first of all, let me say that generally the elections have gone very well, save a few, aberrations here and there. The machines, verification machines breaking down, and then one or two flashes of, if you like, indecent conduct on the part of certain persons who one can call as being on the lunatic fringe. But that's having been said, I think that Ghanaians have generally conducted ourselves well. The future of this country is really, really, really great. We are showing to Africa and the rest of the world that we have indeed come of age. Indeed, we did come of age some time ago, but that's even the absence of, if you like, EU observers, in this election also is a mark of, if you like, endorsement in Ghana, and for that matter, its people and what we can do, and the fact that we've accepted democracy. As to your question, and it is early days yet. The parties have, all kinds of units also monitoring. But because you're on the election headquarters platform, one will be very, very, very measured, with these things. But I can tell you without equivocation that I think that it is early days yet, and I think that as and when larger, constituency numbers come in, a definite winner will come out.
You don't think this is going to go to the wire?
At this stage, no. I don't think that it will go to the wire.
Okay. We would interrogate those thoughts some more. Dr. White.
Yes, well, first of all, let me also, I agree that Ghanaians deserve to be commended for the show of tolerance, the show of cooperation. One of the remarkable things that have happened in this election, at least up to date, is that Ghanaians have shown a sense of emotional detachment from the situation that had occurred, the challenges and the problems that have occurred so far. And that in many ways seems to have helped us to kind of maintain some cool heads. The other thing is that overall, the political parties also seems to have really demonstrated a good sense of leadership and good behavior, and that is also very, very commendable. It's still very early in the day, and we should continue to ask them to keep that kind of attitude. Ultimately, we should allow the Electoral Commission to come out with what they are. I think beyond that, I mean, the problems that have been encountered so far were problems that could be avoided, and these were not problems that haven't been anticipated. Many of these things, like machines breaking down, long queues into the night, delay of arrival of materials and stuff, have all been identified and raised by, lots of people across the society. And had the Electoral Commission paid just a little bit of close attention to these things and addressed them more dispassionately, or invited ideas on how to proceed, given the problems that we are identifying ahead of time, we would probably have avoided these kinds of situations, or we would have minimized them completely. I will still maintain, as I've indicated before the elections, long before the elections, and even more recent times, that I think this election is going to go only one round. Whoever is going to emerge victorious in this election is going to come out one touch. And I think the showing of the smaller parties is clearly beginning to point in that direction, which also seems to indicate that the alignment and realignment processes of our political system are gradually getting entrenched, where individuals generally may get pissed off with the NDC and the MPP, but we also realize that our options are very limited, and so they might want to go with them, hoping that they might be with them and help improve them to the manner that they want. So I think that it is still very early. The 55 provisional ones that you've just indicated is not even 1/3 of all that we are expecting. We have about 220 more to go, and I think as time goes on, it's too early for anybody to celebrate, and it's also too early for anybody to feel down.
Dr. Park, do you share this view that this is something that we could probably finish off in a few days and not necessarily carry on for a second round? Why you give me your broad, big impressions?
Well, Kojo, yes. I think that we certainly deserve commendation as a people, because democracy itself thrives on the participation of the citizenry. It is the one opportunity for the citizens to decide who should lead them, because we are, entrusting our destiny and our future into the hands of a few people. And quite clearly, I think that the people have done very well. And we must also commend the security services, because if you remember, in the build-up to the election, there were some people who expressed concern about the willingness and the ability of the security services to dispense their duties without fear or favor. And if you heard some of the few instances that cropped up, as Fable has indicated, most of the time the security agencies move very swiftly. And I thought that contributed, although generally everyone seemed to have conducted themselves very well. And so we should be happy with the level of understanding and tolerance that we have achieved. In any case, I must indicate that the hitches that we have had, very interestingly, had to come from a system that we have adopted with the hope that it was going to lessen our burden and to move us away from the kind of situation that we find ourselves. And indeed, some of us must be honest when we raised concerns earlier on that this biometric voter registration system could lead us into some type of trouble. And it has happened. And it's important to state that it is not just the breakdown of machines, but it is also the fact that in some areas the machines could not read or read and identify people who had registered, had their cards, and were in the register. So whilst we look at remedying where the machines broke down, the question that still remains is what is going to happen to those who are legitimately registered and yet the machine, they don't recognize them. So as we are trying to complete the exercise today or tomorrow, it's quite important that we also keep this in mind. But all in all, I think it has been a very peaceful process, and we should be proud about how long we have come. Whatever the issues, I believe we'll be able to resolve them very peacefully, and our country is going to move on and become much stronger democratically than it has been.
Okay, well, let me hear your initial thoughts, and then I'll be asking everybody to help us understand what the key issues that need to be interrogated are for each of you.
Well, I think we've come a long way. That's true. I admit that. Moving from what we had to a biometric system, it's an improvement. But it's come with challenges, some of which I think were avoidable. I know I haven't done a very serious statistical assessment of the situation. Let me be very honest with you. But listening to radio and TV reports, particularly your station, you wonder, elections began somewhere, some areas 4, 5, 6 hours later. I don't think it's right. I'm not able to excuse that. I'm not able to rationalize it. Okay? This is the 6th election, the 5th under the Constitution. But we've had 6 elections. And you have a situation where people who have been preparing for this election for almost 4 years, if you like, who have told us that they have been given all the logistics and the financing, okay? And come D-Day, and you have a situation where people had gone queuing from about 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 7 o'clock comes, and they are not able to vote till about 11, 12, sometimes 3. That is a potential for chaos. So yes, we must praise ourselves for that kind of restraint that we saw across those areas, those particular stations. But otherwise, anything could have happened. And who were we going to blame? So I am a bit worried that 6th election, very reputable electoral commission, democratic credentials rising, and yet some of these challenges that are, in my candid opinion, avoidable. To be honest with you, they are not excusable at all. So perhaps we better take a critical look at it. I'm also not too excited about the blame game. Yesterday I monitored some press conferences, relative to these verification challenges and the blame game that ensued, about we told you so. And I believe my brother, Dr. Park, has even dropped a hint of it. Was the verification challenges, was it due to the illiteracy that somebody said was the bane of the process? Or was it due to a technological challenge? Or was it due to the fact that the operators themselves could not operate those things well? I got reports from my boys in the field. Some, when you were changing the battery, they didn't put off the thing before they inserted a new battery, so the thing malfunctioned. So there are certain technical things that happen that can be attributed to the quality of training that the personnel, the operators themselves had, and not even the technology, and for that matter, not also illiteracy. Okay, so these are the problems. But here we are. We are going to run elections in some other constituencies or polling stations a day after the thing. It's quite a peculiar situation, but I'm hoping that a good sense of Ghanaians will prevail. And at the end of the day, we'll have a smooth election. That's why I said I haven't done a statistical analysis, because for all you know, out of the 26,000 polling stations, for all you know, about 20, 25, 24,000 are okay. If so, well, one can do
Indeed, there's a report that was put out by Codeo. My directors are helping me with that report. We'll project it shortly on our magic wall for you to see the extent of this difficulty. It breaks it down to constituencies or regions in which there were issues of violence or breakdown of machines and all of that. We would have a deeper discussion.
That will help us also so that we don't exaggerate the impact of the negativity.
True. We will do that pretty shortly. But if you put all that you have heard together, what for you are the key issues that we must be concerned with, especially at this moment, as the numbers begin to come in, which means in some constituencies they finish their work and they are collating, and you're beginning to see the trend, and as some persons are getting ready to vote, hoping that the materials get there and are functioning today. I'll start with you, Chief.
A lot of issues, but you see, going back to what Kweku said, some of the things he raised. If you look at Regulation 34 of CI 75, that's the Public Election Regulations of 2012, the basis for, if you like, adjournment of polls have been laid out. It says, Regulation 34, Sub-Regulation 1 reads, with your permission, that where the proceedings at a polling station are interrupted or obstructed by A, rout, open violence, storm, flood, or other natural catastrophe, or B, the breakdown of an equipment, the presiding officer shall, in consultation with the returning officer and subject to the approval of the commission, adjourn proceedings to the following day. So, in areas where voting did not start early, is it the case that we are having some of those constituencies, or polling stations having to vote? If that is so, then clearly the law does not make provision for that, because if the EC was very tardy in deploying, then whose fault is it that people did not vote? And so we need to be careful. Otherwise, what we'll see, Kojo, let me tell you candidly, what I see is a number of legal challenges. And my only regret is that our laws are said that when, there is, if you like, a protest and what have you, what has been established, albeit, in an irregular manner, will be deemed to have been correctly done until a petition is sent to the High Court for adjudication. And that is what has occasioned in several injustices in the past, where people or persons who were not even elected to properly elected as members of parliament have stayed the course and virtually served the full term before justice has been done. I know that the judiciary has put in place certain measures to ensure that some of these cases are heard expeditiously. But the point is that if something is regular, we don't even have to allow it to pass in the first place before we go back to the courts to work on, because the laws are very clear. So why do you allow something irregular or illegal to be done? For instance, this situation that has happened somewhere in the north where the MPP candidate is refusing to sign off. Right. The CI-75 makes it very clear that before you vote, your identity must be verified. So who and who in the queue conspired or agreed that, well, for whatever reason, even though the machine is broken down, let's nevertheless go ahead and vote. Right, so we have a section of Ghanaians voting by verification and another section voting without verification. Then if you like, integrity issues crop up. Integrity issues crop up. A lot of things. I sincerely think that we've done well, but if we do not take care, a lot of these inefficiencies will transmogrify into something else that may destroy, if you like, the beauty of what we have achieved so far. And I think that the EC has a certain mandate. It has to drive this process to its very logical conclusion without fear or favor. I mean, talk of people holding press conferences and what have you. Because when, you see, and it's surprising, I don't want to mention particular party names, but you see, to whom much is given, much is expected. One is also not saying that when you feel that there are certain aberrations, you should not raise them. But is it not proper and better for you to go to the EC and lodge a formal complaint in writing, rather than holding a press conference? Allow the EC the benefit of the doubt to deal with the situation first, rather than going to hold press conference. Because if Party A speaks, Party B will speak. And then the EC will be caught in a certain vortex where it will be very cautious of what it is doing. And I think that our leaders must show a lot of restraint and respect for the sanctity of, if you like, our national cohesion at this time.
Talking of press conferences, we had a few press statements yesterday, which you alluded to, but we're also hearing that there's going to be a press briefing later this morning, I think by the John Mahama campaign team. There are hints that, there are other press statements that are expected. You don't think that necessarily helps the exercise? Some seem to share the view that it provides clarity and leadership from the political elite for their supporters.
The public is not Afarijan or the Electoral Commission. For an election as critical as this, my expectation will be that there will be Afarijan, seated at the EC headquarters, and any party, especially the leading contenders who have any issues, will first put it down in writing and give it to Afarijan, meet up with him and his deputies, and try and give them at least 2, 3, 4, 5 hours for them to see what can be done about it before it comes out. In any event, even if you write formally to Afarijan, you can issue the same statement to the public, you understand? But the talking head concept, people say we are winning, you are feeding a certain, construct into the minds of people. And I think it is dangerous. Our peace has not come at an easy price. And those in leadership should be very careful at this time with what they do by way of these press conferences, because nobody is going to take any such thing lying there, especially when the impression is created that because the president's party has spoken, Afarijan has been compelled to act in a certain way. The MPP is not going to take it lightly. So why don't they put it down in a statement? Because even if you issue a statement, you don't have that latitude of going to run your mouth, as we say, and say we are winning. It's definite. No, you can say something that, well, you are sure that you win. You understand? But then you go to a president, the media will ask you questions. And then you also, speak. And then it can trigger a whole lot of things. So I think that the NDC or President Mahama and his campaign team should be circumspect. The MPP should also be circumspect. Every other contestant in this election should be circumspect with these press conferences. Afarijan and the EC are the real McCoys in this instance. You have a problem, go there, put it down in writing, give it to them, and give them the benefit of the doubt. Let them work on it.
Well, I think that what is ironic and perhaps paradoxical about this year's election is that traditionally the political parties have been the problem. They have always been the ones that complain. They have been the ones that either having their supporters get into violence or become emotional about results or about malpractices, perceived or otherwise. Unfortunately, I actually see the political parties less as the problem in this particular election. I think I will still commend them for, significantly holding back compared to previous elections. And I think that is, we need to commend them so that they know that we are also commending them when they do the right thing, and we are prepared to condemn them when they do the wrong thing. But the EC, on the other hand, who has been the beacon of hope in our elections and have been this neutral arbiter and has delivered very good results for us over the years, have in my mind become the problem. And I think that is one thing that we need to interrogate more carefully. You see, there are one of the three of the pillars that we often look out for in elections is free, fair, and credible. Irrespective of the outcome of this election, some of the questions that will remain will be whether this election was fair. Because you have election results coming in and you have people queuing to vote. There are I made this point yesterday on your show. There are possibilities of psychological impact and psychological influence on the people who are yet to go and vote. It could impact in any way. There may be those who say, well, you know what, I was not going to vote, but listening to the results now, maybe I should go and vote for my party or the party I would have normally supported anyways. So we shouldn't really underrate the potential of or the problems that have crop up and the possibility that anybody can go to court and say, you know what, yes, the elections have been generally peaceful, but they don't think that the elections have created a very fair ground for everybody else involved. But more importantly, and I think that is also part of why we run into this difficulty, is compared to previous years, the Electoral Commission had actually engaged less in public education in this year's election than in previous years. If you cast your mind back in previous years, months before election, there are radio adverts, TV adverts, and posters across the country telling people all kinds of things. So people get cognitively prepared before they get in there. It appears we had a crash course in this election. Everything was kind of crashed out. And so some of the polling officers, for instance, were acting based on their own discretion. Whether that discretion was given to them by the Electoral Commission or on themselves, one cannot tell. For instance, people have queued at polling stations since 8 p.m. into the following day, only for the ballot boxes and ballot papers and electoral officials to arrive at the polling station and say, we are going to arrange everybody according to alphabetical. This is a recipe for disaster. In this particular case, it is not the political parties that are generating the problem. It is the officers on the field that the Electoral Commission had sent out there that are creating the problem. And for lack of better word, I would say the Electoral Commission had been a little bit more complacent in this. I think that civil society, the media, and those of us who comment in the media have tried to help by raising the issues. All we could do is to raise the issues. And I think one of the responses by the Electoral Commission, well, the skeptics are saying this will take us 5 minutes, this will take us, we have tried this, we have piloted it, and it's all not going to be so. But yesterday, we saw it. Chief raised a very important point about, people who were in the queue and couldn't vote and so on and so forth. I raised the earlier argument, I think the day before the election, that look, what happens if by 5 o'clock, people are still in the queue? The Electoral Commission's response was, well, they will be allowed to vote. What happens if voting started at that polling station at 2 p.m. or 12 a.m.? What it means is that they will be voting all the way into that. Fundamentally, it defeats the purpose of having to specify 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I think that this whole idea of leaving the back door open and the front door flexible, so that when people are still in the queue, you allow them to vote regardless of what is happening, has potentially become part of the problem. As we sit here now, we have situations where people could not vote because of broken down machines. People couldn't vote because machines arrived late. People could not vote because their names were there and then there was somebody else's picture on them. These things, I believe, and I want to believe, they are minor issues. Because as I drove through at least 2 regions yesterday to go and cast my vote, until I started hearing the complaints on the radio, I thought that everything was going very smoothly across the country because I didn't really notice any of this problem. People were very, very, cooperative, very cordial. Everything was nicely done in many of these rural areas, only to get the sense on the radio. And I think this is where I cautioned that we need to get a sense from the Electoral Commission as soon as possible what is the fraction of the polling centers across the country that are affected by this. But more importantly, and this is probably where the political parties are becoming a lot more apprehensive and are doing some of these press, the Electoral Commission has not been proactive in this matter. They have been rather reactive. I would have wished that at 2 p.m. yesterday, when we started noticing the problems, the Electoral Commission would have issued a directive. Even if you see the statement that came out yesterday, what was the content of it? People in queue, voting has been adjourned, people whose machines have been broken down, you can come back the following day to vote. It didn't tell us whether they could count or they couldn't count. There were all these gray areas that were open to people's guesses. And I think that the Electoral Commission still has a window of opportunity to provide strong, proactive leadership. And it must not do that behind the scenes. It must do it as a matter of public education.
Let me find out from you why you, for instance, don't seem excited at the possibility of legal challenges. Isn't it a good thing if people choose to resolve whatever challenges they may have in the courts instead of resorting to other means? Wouldn't that be a good thing? Because all over the world, even in the advanced democracies, that's what they do. If you're not happy, you go to court.
No, maybe you got me wrong. I'm not against it at all. I think that we could have avoided it. We could have potentially brushed all these things aside if we had basically listened to some comments coming from the public prior to the election. And now that we've gotten to where we are now, once we run this thing into a legal challenge, we don't know what's likely to happen. For instance, if somebody goes to court tomorrow and say, look, I don't think this election is fair based on A, B, C, and D, are we going to declare final results? What happens? Are we going to be able to resolve this before 7th January? Are we going to have a president 7th January? So there are all these questions that makes the legal challenge such a big hurdle going forward. It is not that the legal challenge is bad if it ever comes up, but if it comes up, will we be running into constitutional crisis, or is the judicial system capable, able, and ready to deal with it and ensure that we maintain the democratic calendar?
Egbert suggests that our legal system over the years adopts a certain approach. When there are challenges, it first accepts the status quo as having been properly done, and then seeks to litigate that. What do you think are the challenges or the risks?
Well, that is true. But not when somebody goes to court, even before the election results are declared, and injunts the results. If the results are injunted, what do we have? It depends. If the judiciary is able to deal with the matter as fast as possible, maybe we may not run into any crisis. But if it's not able to deal with it fast enough, we are likely to probably run into a problem.
It's just 2 minutes after 10. As we speak this morning, we have verified 55 constituency results, and we have keyed them into our collation system here at Joy FM. As I mentioned at the top of the hour when we started the show, the NDC's John Dramani Mahama is leading by 52.23%. The MPP's Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is trailing with 46.37%. They are the two front runners in this race. But the important question to ask is, which constituencies are these 55 constituencies? And what has been their voting records over the years? That's how you make sense of these numbers. And we'll be doing that, as I mentioned, later in our show. Dr. Park, for you, what are the key issues worth considering where we are right now?
Well, first of all, I think that I largely agree with, Fabel and, of course, Mike. In the sense that, we have acted generally well. The people have conducted themselves well. Up till now, the political parties have restrained themselves. But the likelihood of some legal challenges are very real for several reasons. And I think that, on the whole, it is not very helpful when the political parties are beginning to posture themselves the way they are. And I agree that it would be very helpful if they tone it down and they avoid this tendency of declaring themselves winners when we've not even gotten to half of the number of constituencies. I think that is largely dangerous, because what that does is that it increases the passion and becomes a source of incitement to their followers and supporters, so that if they turn out not to win, and those who may not have the real information from the right sources are not people who are circumspective, then you can see how very easily that can lead to some type of trouble. So it would be very helpful for them to hold back, and nobody should be claiming any victory, not when we have not even reached halfway. Having said that, though,
parties also, sorry to interrupt you. The parties also have this thinking that if you don't speak up too quickly and the things get done, you've lost it out.
But based on what? How do you declare victory when you have not even gone more than halfway?
Well, sometimes it's not declaring victory. If you monitored yesterday, for instance, the president himself when he spoke in Bole, and then his campaign team when they spoke at the press conference, and this is my measure of it. Tell me if you agree or disagree with me. I felt the sense that they thought that it was necessary to put their voice in at that moment to call for, an amendment of the rules to allow people to vote without verification, and that if you didn't do that, they were going to lose out on that opportunity. And I think that's the psyche with which the parties respond.
Well, clearly, I was here. In fact, interestingly, I was here on the panel when the president spoke on that issue, and right before that, I was the one who made the comment, and rightly so, based on the information that was coming to us, that this issue of the inability of machines to read the prints of eligible voters, which as a result caused them not to be able to vote, was becoming a pattern in the northern sector of the country. I even postulated that it could have something to do with the type of economic activity that people in the northern sector engaged in. So there could be a very legitimate scientific reason why that could have occurred. But my concerns even became heightened when the president of the Upper East Regional House of Chiefs, yeah, you remember, called in very furious because he was able to vote and his wife couldn't, and a lot of other subjects couldn't. And then we had the chief of Tamale also calling in to make a passionate appeal through his spokesperson that several sub-chiefs had come to him to complain about a similar issue. And then I got a call from my own homeland of Bulsa in the Sandma area. So it became quite clear that something was not right. But as Kweku indicated earlier, we don't know whether it is as a result of perhaps human error, perhaps because some people didn't understand the way to properly operate the machine, or it was as a result of the economic activity that could have made it impossible or confused the system in terms of identification. So my opinion is that when we speak about the possibility of challenging the outcome of the poll, this issue is going to be factored in, because if we are going to speak about the integrity of the poll and fairness vis-a-vis the right of the citizen to vote, you cannot punish a citizen or deny a citizen the right to vote, which is constitutional, because the verification machine has failed to verify when there are other means of clearly identifying such a candidate. So I hope that perhaps IPAC would convene very quickly, and the parties should come to some determination. But this would also be based on the magnitude of the issue. And this is why I think that I agree with Mike's submission and to a large extent, Fabel, that the Electoral Commission has not been very proactive. In fact, we were making the call even here in this same studio yesterday that at least from about 2 p.m. onwards, there is no reason why the Electoral Commission should not have been able to come out with some clear guidelines. It was very clear where the problems were going to be and the nature of the problems. So for them to have been quiet around the issue, only to come up later in the day to even say that there was going to be an extension of voting overnight, without even clearly indicating and not speaking about the specific issue of those whose fingerprints could not be read, I think it's a deficiency, and hopefully they can correct that even as we speak.
Kweku, what are your key issues that you think are worth considering, especially at this moment?
I was quite intrigued by, well, not just exactly intrigued, but I was alarmed when the chief, is it the Upper East one?
Yes, the chief of Akoti.
It wasn't just the fury or the anger that he expressed that was a problem for me, but actually he implied that they would not recognize the results.
He even said it could be mayhem.
So anything could happen.
Yes, that I thought was quite significant, because he's a leader of a community, and that tells you the emotions that come with elections, you know. So sometimes we have to be charitable towards the political leaders who also raise alarm, you know. Sometimes we are so unkind and uncharitable towards political leaders. But here is a situation where we had a chief, and he was so angry to the extent that he implied or indicated that they wouldn't recognize the results. But I was thinking, no verification, no vote. Is that not the law? That's the law.
Indeed, if you read the CI 75, let me just read it.
Yesterday, the CI is subsidiary to the Constitution.
That is the law.
But it is an operational law.
But we can challenge
it. Operationalizes the voting. The Constitution
is the supreme law.
The Constitution gives you the foundational basis.
You know this.
But this is the operational basis for voting.
May I just give a trend of the discussion as at yesterday? We got some education even from Dr. Raymond Atuguba, who explained that yes, the Constitution lays a foundation, but the CI works, on the foundation of the Constitution. It is only in an instance where people are disenfranchised, as in they are not allowed to vote.
That's right.
If the vote is adjourned, it's not the same as they've been disenfranchised. CI 75, Section 32 says the voter shall go through a biometric verification process. And then 34, 1B says if there's a breakdown of equipment, the poll can be adjourned.
Yes, so nobody was prevented from being verified in terms of the biometric verification. If you are prevented from that exercise, I think then your right is being violated. But if you are given the opportunity to go through and for some reason the machine fails to verify you, I'm not too sure how you are going to be able to litigate successfully on this matter in court, because you were given the opportunity. You were not denied the opportunity. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal brain. I'm just thinking aloud. Those of you who have legal can input. But that's the way I see it. That if you were given the opportunity to go through, it's unfortunate. I'm not too happy about that. Let me be honest with you. Instinctively, I wish some commonsensical approach could have been adopted, some administrative thing. But I realize that since it's captured in the law, at that material moment where there is that complication, the presiding officer has no legal basis to give you the opportunity to vote. If he does that, he would be violating the law, and that can even lead to some challenges that we will prefer to avoid. So, come in, I don't have a problem.
Just a quick point.
Sure.
I agree with your analysis, but don't you think that the integrity of the poll would be in question if there are citizens legitimately who are unable to vote, but there is proper indication that they were properly registered? Does that mean that we shouldn't allow them to vote if it means that those machines have to be reconfigured?
So what about
instinctively
people?
and sentimentally?
Well, but
people who don't even have
they could be anticipated, so they were programmed. They could be anticipated, so they were programmed. That's why I'm saying perhaps the system has to be reconfigured.
Sentimentally, I am for that. My left, this one wasn't picked, and I was alarmed till they said bring the right one, and it said verified. So I went through it. So as a human being, I feel for those who didn't go through the process, but I am saying that how do you resolve that problem at the material moment of voting? Who has the authority to amend the law at that material moment without bringing more complications? Apart from that, there was something that I found significant, and I'm not sure how it was resolved. Maybe Kojo can give us the answer. This point about the suspension of the voting, the adjournment, and where to send the controversy that ensued, in terms, it brings up the question of trust or confidence in the police or the statutory body, the security services. How was it resolved?
Just before I answer that, let's pay attention to our magic wall here. This is the report that Codeo published after their monitors had monitored the 26,000 polling stations. I just want to read from the top bullet. It says, Codeo PVT observers confirmed that voters' biometric information was verified prior to voting at 99% of the polling stations. So it tells you that the exercise itself was about 99% successful. It says, however, the biometric verification machines failed at some point during voting at 18% of the polling stations. That's the extent, of, can I say, damage of this exercise, 18%. Problems with biometric verification machines were most frequent in the Greater Accra region, where 33% of the polling stations recorded those problems. And if you look at the graph that follows, the Brong-Ahafo region had 11% of their polling stations recording a breakdown or non-functioning of the biometric machines. Ashanti region represented 12%. 12% of their polling stations recorded difficulties with their biometric machines. The machines broke down. Central region had 21% of their machines breaking down. Volta region had 11% of their polling stations recording a breakdown in their machines. Western region also had 11%. Upper East region, and that's what you were alluding to, quite a good chunk of the numbers came from the Upper East region, 26%. Eastern region, 14%. Northern region, 27%. Upper West region, 22%. The Greater Accra region, as we mentioned earlier, had the highest number of machines that were breaking down. 33% of the polling stations were reporting that their machines were breaking down. And the national average was 18%.
Well, good. I like this. That's what I said I liked. And so perhaps we ought to be cautious in order not to exaggerate the impact, except to say that however minimal the percentage may be in particular constituencies, it could still be a potential for violence there and create problems for the entire country, in the sense that it could spread. It could have a domino effect. So whilst this is good news, and I think it's important in terms of the overall integrity of the process, we still should try as much as possible to avoid, particularly in those constituencies that have a lot of people crowded in there, queued up, okay, with this whole alphabetical things that came in. So you would have charged those persons already emotionally, and then when the machine breaks down, to even educate and inform them as to the basis for the breakdown may be problematic. And before you say jack, some violence may have ensued. So to that extent, I'm actually a bit satisfied. I'm relaxed.
I was going to say that.
But 18% is still high.
Yeah, but I'm not sure overall it's going to affect the integrity of the voting process.
Wouldn't that depend on the margins? Depending on the margins.
If you look at these numbers alone and you minimize the effect, that might be problematic because some of these polling stations have large numbers of voters. And if the machine breaks down very early in the day and the large majority of people had not voted at the time, that's quite a chunk of people.
So we should still wait for a while.
Exactly. We should still wait for some time.
But I was going to say that I just realized what for me is a clear absurdity and repugnance in this, identification of voters and the verification system. If you look at Regulation 30 of CI 75, it says that a presiding officer may, before delivering a ballot paper to a person who is to vote at the election, require the person to produce A, a voter identification card, or B, any other evidence determined by the commission. So straight away, you are required to show your voter ID card or perhaps even your passport or anything, just for your whatever to be. And I said, in order to establish by fingerprint or facial recognition that the person is a registered voter whose name and voter ID number and particulars appear in the register. So that is done. It happened to me. I'm sure it happened to every one of us here. Then you go to Regulation 31, Sub-Regulation 3A. It says the voter on receiving, so you go through the strictures of you are given the ballot. It says the voter on receiving the ballot paper shall A, immediately proceed to one of the places set aside in the ballot paper for the thumb printing of the ballot paper. You understand? So that is where the verification comes in. If the officer has looked at my face and given me my ID card and he's passed me, why is it that when my thumb doesn't pop up on the machine, then I will not be allowed to vote? The question is that it is also proven that if you are even on a certain type of medication,
that's right,
prior to undergoing any biomedical, even going for a visa from the U.S. Embassy, you will try whatever it is, depending on the kind of medication you are taking. Your thumbprint will not appear. So you see, I think that it's a big lesson we are learning. You see, the EC, I think that the EC should also learn to act in a very timely manner. This CI 75 has to be reviewed. In fact, a new one has to be laid before the next election. And a lot of consultation has to be done. We need to tour the country and listen to people in the various polling stations and the various problems they encountered, and then we factor them in. They should not call only the political parties and think that because they are the, if like, major stakeholders, it is only the political parties that listen. Because even this thing that resulted in, if you like, journalists in quotes being taken off special voting, if possibly journalists had been part of the special voting, a lot of these things would have been brought out. Right. The security agencies went there, they saw the problems, and they were calling journalists and telling them, but, well, misinformation and all kinds of things. So sometimes, I think a year or two to the next election, we need to lay a new CI, and we actually need to consult the way when we're going to go democratic from the PNDC era. We taught the whole country and listen to people. Let's listen to the ordinary man on the street and in the hamlets before we pass another CI. Don't let people sit in Accra and pretend that they know it all and pass CIs, which result in absurdities and repugnant situations as we have on our hands at present.
While we continue with our analysis, let me share with you some new results that are coming in. Akwatia in the Eastern region. It's always been an interesting constituency. I'll start with the presidential election. The NDC's John Dramani Mahama got 18,963 votes. That's 18,963 votes. The GCPP's Dr. Henry Latte got 118 votes. The NPP's Nana Akufo-Addo got 20,506 votes. Dr. Papa Kwesi Indom of the PPP got 87 votes. The UFP's Kwesi Adai got 9 votes. And the PNC's Hassan Ayaga got 17 votes. The CPP's Dr. Abu Sakara got 24 votes. And the independent candidate Jacob Osei-Yeboah got 4 votes. The two big ones, 18,963 for John Mahama and 20,506 for Nana Akufo-Addo. Go to parliamentary votes. It was a two-horse race between Baba Jamal of the NDC, and he's tried that seat a number of times, and Dr. Kofi Asare of the MPP. Baba Jamal won the seat with 20,308 votes, and Dr. Kofi Asare lost with 19,737. So that now sounds like a skirt and blouse constituency, where for the presidential, Nana Akufo-Addo won. For the parliamentary, the NDC's candidate, Baba Jamal, won. Let me take you to Yilo Krobo in the eastern region. John Mahama, 29,300. Dr. Latte of the GCPP, 122. The MPP's Nana Akufo-Addo, 13,339. Papa Kwesi Indom, 190. The UFP's Kwesi Adai, 16. The PNC's Hassan Ayaga, 31. The CPP's Abu Sakara Foster, 57. And the independent Jacob Osei-Yeboah, 21. Again, the two big numbers are the NDC's John Mahama, 29,300. And the MPP's Nana Akufo-Addo, 13,339. The parliamentary race, the NDC's Magnus Kofi Amwate, he won with 26,581. And he was followed by Christian Kofi Tete, 14,510. The NDC won that seat as well. Bantama in the Ashanti region, John Mahama, 9,321. GCPP's Dr. Herbert Latte, 13,000. The MPP's Nana Akufo-Addo, 49,433. Dr. Indom of the PPP, 158. The UFP's Kwesi Adai didn't get any votes there. PNC's Hassan Ayaga got 18, and the CPP's Abu Sakara got 23. Jacob Osei-Yeboah, the independent candidate, didn't get any votes there. For parliamentary, the two big ones are Yao Edusei, 8,321 for the NDC, and Kwabena Kokofu, 49,054 for the NPP. It's important to see the trend, and I'll try and pull up the trend, in these particular constituencies, at least these three constituencies, for us to be able to make some sense out of them. But as you hear them coming, surprised or not?
Well, not quite. Except the only place that is quite interesting and surprising is the fact that finally Baba Jamal has been able to win. I think this is his fourth attempt from what I hear. And of course, it also indicates, as you indicated earlier on, skirt and blouse. Other than that, I mean, Bantama, everyone expects Nanado to have done very well there, and of course he has. And of course, even in Akwetia, the eastern region largely, although Baba Jamal was able to squeeze, because if you look at the margin of victory, it's not that big. And therefore, we shouldn't be surprised that Nanado still won in terms of the presidential, and yet Baba Jamal was able to squeeze through. So, as far as I know, in terms of the general trends, it is fairly the same, except that this time Baba Jamal has been able to pull it off by a very slight margin. But I wanted to speak slightly, going back to that the graph you showed in terms of these challenges that came up, and I don't want us to minimize the effect, because if you looked at the northern sector by and large, you could see that the percentages were quite high. Upper East, Upper West Northern region. And that is reflective of the level of complaints that were coming in, including, chiefs, even the president of a regional house of chief threatening on behalf of his constituents. In fact, I got a call from somebody who said that I should perhaps be suggesting that the police should keep an eye on him. They felt that he was way too passionate on the phone when he called. So we shouldn't minimize that. It's important that we work to resolve it. And I think that the sections of the law that Fable quoted actually makes the case that I've made all along. Right. Because if you look at what he quoted within the context of what it means to verify, it suggests that people whose fingerprints could not be read for one reason or the other, but who were confirmed to have been on the voters list through the presence of a valid ID before they even then went, because the process was that You went there with your ID. There was a first person who looked at your ID, corresponded that to a number. Then you went to the person who had the voters register with a number, and they would cross-check before you then place your finger. Which means that the first two stages of identification were fulfilled, and the third one was not. So, do you really think it is fair to prevent people from voting because one component of a 3-stage process has not confirmed your identity?
Let me give you some more data. Let me give you some more data as we do this analysis. Quickly, just watch our wall here. This is the 2008 runoff election. Chief Magas, if you just let us have a look. Nana Akufo-Addo in 2008 during the runoff election did 19,398 votes, and this is when there were only 2 candidates. Nobody else was running in the 2008 runoff election. This morning he's doing 20,506. He's grown a little bit. The NDC's Jonathan Mills in that second round vote in 2008 did 16,170. This morning his party and his candidate John Dramani Mahama is also doing 18,963. Now watch this. What it means is that the NPP's candidate is grown just under 1,000 votes, but the NDC's votes have grown by almost 2,000.
First of all, rejected votes then and now, I'm not sure. Then 2, rate the growth in voter population in terms of the registration. Do we have those figures?
We don't, but you see, what it does is that
rejected votes are just about the same, because rejected votes here are 610, rejected
and 748
votes here.
What is the number of registered voters then and now?
Yeah.
That also
what is clear from this, though, is that voter turnout in that constituency is very, very high, because you can see that in both cases, the 2 candidates have upped their game rather than the numbers that they had in the previous
in spite of the fact that there are other candidids even in this particular race.
Right.
And you do know that in the presidential election, the whole country is one constituency.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you are looking for how you marginalize or you optimize your votes, maximize your votes coming from areas where you are traditionally comfortable.
Yes, but to be honest, it's too early now, Koyo, to make any serious excuse me to say, science out of these numbers. We have just about 55, is it? Or it's more than 55 now, constituencies declared. So I'm unable really to make any statistical sense in terms of projection based on what we have at this stage. It will be premature. I'm very cautious, apart from the fact that I'm incompetent when it comes to electoral analysis. I have to be very careful.
Let me give you some more data as well. Take the Yilo Krobo constituency. Again, back to our war. 2008 runoff in the Yilo Krobo constituency. The NDC won that constituency. They have won it again this election. But pay attention to the numbers. John Atamils of the NDC did 24,867 votes. This morning, the NDC's candidate is doing 29,300 votes in that constituency. The MPP's Nana Akufo-Addo did 10,337 votes in that Yilo Krobo constituency. This morning, he is doing 13,339. He's grown roughly by a little over 3,000 votes. The NDC is grown by some 4,000 plus votes in that
constituency. Are those constituencies unaffected by the 45 new creation? Are they?
A good number of them are. Yes, a good number of them are. Yilo Krobo, it doesn't show up here that it's one of those that's affected.
No,
if it was, it will be showing up here. So again, you are watching some of these numbers, and then you are looking up at, yes, it's still the same constituency that was won, but what are the numbers playing up to be? Magas?
You see, okay, sorry.
No, I think that, these things provide useful signposts to guide us, as we go along. But I still think that it is still early days yet. Major constituencies for both leading contenders are going to come in. And then people will start looking at these things in a more holistic, if you like, manner than in this, if you like, piecemeal kind of approach. Yes, it is good. They are useful guides and all. But I think that the personalities involved are even different right now as we speak. So, though the parties are the same. So let's allow these candidates, President Mahama and Nana Akufo-Addo, to bring their own stamps of authority to to bear on these elections and how their parties are performing going forward, could you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
And,
I think
just to mention that we're told the NDC campaign team is just getting ready for its press conference. Our cameras are there. We would, share with you what they say at that press conference.
Okay. Thank you. I think that one of the things that we can pick from this increase in numbers is that it's a reflection of the general increase in the registration book. If you look at the previous registration, the numbers on the registered voter, voters register, and the numbers now, you see that there is an increase, and we are seeing the increase reflect in the numbers we are seeing here in both parties. What is key and what we probably need to keep our eye on is if we imagine or assume that the increases in the voters register is due to first-time voters, then we should be asking where are first-time voters going as far as these numbers are concerned. And it will appear to me that first-time voters do not seem to really be shaking the numbers at all, because the pattern seems to be like an equal spread among the two major parties going forward. But it's still too early to tell.
We agree it's still too early to tell. The Bantamang constituency, I think, was affected by the redemarcation. Yes, it was affected. So even though the numbers have changed here, it's difficult to read a trend, because today's Bantamang constituency is not exactly the same as it was even in the 2008.
So that is one of those that was split into two.
Yes, it was affected. Parts of it I think were cut off. We'll get the final detail and share with our viewers and our listeners. This is your election headquarters, Joy 99.7 FM. It's 31 minutes after 10. We're told that the NDC's campaign team is getting ready to address a press conference. We will share with you what they say at that press conference. In the meantime, polls are supposed to have opened by now. Polls are supposed to have opened by now in some of the other polling stations. Now we are told about 18% of the polling stations, 18% of the 26,000 or so polling stations. I'll work out the numbers for you shortly. Where the polls couldn't take place yesterday, they are supposed to have opened by now. We're still getting reports, however, that in a few of those polling stations, they have still not received materials, even as at now, the morning after. We'll keep an eye on it, and then we'll bring you updates. You wanted to say something?
A complaint that has come from our colleague JCR president, Lovestone Mamata. He's texting to complain that if you call Fable Chief Magas, you must call me Chief Apat. Given that he was the JCR president, Fable was the chief and I was his deputy. And I think it is a fair complaint. It is a fair complaint.
So this is an open rivalry, yeah?
No, but we have always been allies.
I see.
Yeah, so forget about the political leanings. We are the greatest ally. But we used to spend a lot of vacation at their home.
Okay.
Yeah, eating and sleeping in the same bed as boys.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
The old man would always come and wake us up in the morning.
Good for you. So in about 4,600 polling stations across the country, we're expecting them to vote today. Yeah. If the reports from the CODIO are anything to go by, that's about 18% of the polling stations, representing about 4,680 polling stations across the country are expected to be voting today. We'll go around shortly and share with you what's happening there. We've got some live pictures from the NDC's press conference, which is just about getting underway. My director signals to me that he would want us to have a look at that while we go ahead. I think they are yet to take their seats. Yeah, they are yet to take their seats, and so we'll share with you what happens at that press conference.
But can you find out what happened to the ballot boxes in those areas where the elections were adjourned?
We will try and pull up some of the videos for you. Yeah. Yesterday, there were constituencies and polling stations in which people understood it very simply. I think you were here when we were showing some of those videos coming in live, and our cameras were walking along with the police and the EC officers as they moved the ballot boxes. And, it was interesting seeing the party agents walking along with them and cameras walking along with them.
Stored at the police station.
Yes, and they were taken to the polling station.
Agents stayed there.
We don't know that for a fact now. Okay, we don't know that for a fact now. We're trying
the law is silent on what to do under such circumstances with the ballot papers.
And actually, the Electoral Commission's press statement yesterday also did not help, because they issued a directive on what should be done, but then they did not go into the detail. And in some of the polling stations, there were confusion, like Medina. The voters said, you are not moving this here to anywhere.
Even in Bulgaria and the Upper East as well.
So clearly there is a need for some clarity on what exactly happened in almost all these constituencies.
How do you think this thing of 4,680 polling stations that are still voting this morning is going to affect our ability to collate and find out where we're going ASAP?
Which constituencies? Of course, in the closely contested elections, it counts. But it depends on the margins. So which constituencies, if we know the constituencies and the voter population in those constituencies and the relative strengths and weaknesses of the various contenders, particularly the two main contenders, it may give us an idea. That is when, if you are doing a projection.
For the presidential?
Yeah,
because for the parliamentary, mostly they can still tell.
Yes, it's for the presidential. That's where my focus is. So it's really good to take some time. But I'm a bit worried that you are saying that there's a recycling or a repeat of some of the problems we had yesterday. It ought not to happen. Yeah, already.
So I raised the same issue yesterday. I mean, my argument yesterday was, what happens if we have machines breaking down or ballot papers and things arriving late again? What will we do? But for on the basis of the question you asked earlier.
Let me just read one of those texts. I'll come to you. Good morning, Kojo. Voting was adjourned at the Darius International School yesterday. Since 7 a.m. this morning, no materials. Officers and security persons here have still not given any information to the many voters here. That was sent in by Susan. Go ahead.
On the basis of the 4,000 polling stations that you ask how that is going to affect, I think the national average, if you look at the national average in terms of voter population, on the whole, each polling station has about 540 registered voters, each polling station. That's an average. I'm not saying that that's the definite number because it varies across. So if you look at that times the 4,000 polling stations affected, it means that we have about 2.1 million voters yet to go through the process today. And so if we can only tell definitely if we know the difference in the numbers of in terms of the margins that are coming so far. And that is a big number that we shouldn't play with. So it is something that we need to really keep an eye on.
If I may add very quickly, and that is why I think it's a bit disturbing that the political parties are beginning to make the kinds of pronouncements that they are making.
Right.
I mean, when you have an outstanding number like that,
that's right.
Given the history that we know from 2008, when the margin was less than 50,000, and we are speaking in excess of 1 million.
Yeah.
How can you make projections?
If you really want an answer to that question, election headquarters is going by a certain strict regime.
Yes.
But the parties themselves have their own self-accounting mechanism, so they know what is going on
the ground.
Election headquarters will wait until certified, and then they'll put it out. So the parties know what is going on. I mean, let's say plus some error of margin, permitting, and all those. They know. They have a fair idea. You understand? So those who are getting worried are getting worried.
Okay. Well, but I think
so everyone must.
And you think that's what is informing their statement?
Oh yes. But people must act responsibly. That is all.
We'll be looking forward to
the public cannot correct anything for you. It is the electoral commission that can correct it. So why don't you go to the EC first? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for them to work through what you have brought. Because Afraja will tell you that, all this is you are saying, I mean, it doesn't work for me in certain instances. If there's a need for something to be done, he will say, okay, this is legit, let's look at it and correct it.
But I think it's also exactly that attitude that has led us into this problem. We have outsourced common sense to the political parties. We have outsourced common sense also to machines. We have two methods of verification in the electoral process. One is what you read in the CI, which is the ID and everything. That has been the process all through the years, and it has been placed there. Why do we say that after going through all those processes, you must ask the machine, which is manufactured by a human being and can go faulty? And if the machine says no, then you can vote.
Then maybe we shouldn't have put that in the law. Do you think that for our parliamentarians across the divide, who sat in parliament and prescribed this law, they were in a bit of a haste and this was lost on them, or they didn't necessarily think that this was going to happen?
I actually put down here when Chief was talking about this earlier on that, of course, I know that Parliament
can't do anything about it. Just lay 21 days.
But I actually said, this shows the level of thinking that went into designing this particular law. Because common sense would have told you that, look, this thing is a potential danger. In fact, we should actually count ourselves very, very lucky that we are talking about only about 18% of voters.
4,680 polling stations thereabouts.
Yeah. So we should count ourselves lucky. Otherwise, this could have been a massive catastrophe and we wouldn't have been able to really handle it. I argued that, look, even in terms of implementation, this is a policy problem. In terms of implementation, the Electoral Commission could have actually said, yes, we will do biometric, but maybe in terms of implementation, we will still have the fallback. We will have a fallback strategy. Or maybe we will not do the machines now. We will try these machines in what do you call it, the district assembly elections, and be sure that we can address all the problems before we take it to a general election. I do know that the Electoral Commission succumbed to the pressures coming from the political parties, and in the process, we have basically outsourced common sense, and we should thank ourselves that we are actually holding cool and getting out of the emotions.
I think that whilst we identify the challenges that we've had with the biometric system, and of course these unanticipated challenges that we are having with the verification machine, we must also agree that it has largely contributed to the very peaceful and generally acceptable nature of the conduct of the polls, because it increased confidence. People were relatively convinced that the issues of numbers exceeding the numbers in the register and all of this, and it caused people to have a reasonable level of confidence and calmness, because they felt that this system was one that was going to eliminate some of those human errors, which has largely occurred. But what we ended up with was mechanical errors and challenges, which I think that if, as Mike said, we had reasoned a lot more deeply, we could have put in the backup plan, because it simply does not make sense for citizens to be disenfranchised because a machine has not been able to recognize them for whatever reason. And we don't know. And I think that is why I am so hopeful that perhaps it's a machine. They should be looked at if they have to be reconfigured to identify people that we know have the legitimate right to vote and have the identity either than being certified by the machine. Then we can move on and this issue will be resolved.
Well, do you think this is happening because maybe under consideration? And yes, even though the CI just has to be in Parliament for 21 days and automatically it becomes law, else the best they can do is to reject it. You think maybe if we had paid more attention, we wouldn't have been here?
Yes and no. You see, this particular election cycle has been so tight, peculiarly so tight. If you go back and do a comparative analysis of this particular cycle with the rest, so many things were loaded together at a very short time, and so much controversy also ensued. So let's find out. There were reasons. Part of the blame could go to the EC. And in any case, maybe all of us should be blamed as well. Because, see, there were many times it was obvious that some of the things being done by the EC were, worrying. And some of us were in the chorus that, look, they are the credible institution.
But you said they were rushing things, I remember. You said that severally.
So we all allowed it to happen, And with regards to some of the laws, we, the media, of course, must also take part of the blame. We didn't scrutinize enough. I know everybody disagrees with me.
Yeah.
Yes, but we didn't scrutinize enough. We were holding some of these documents all over the place.
By interception.
Yes, we didn't realize that explicitly we hadn't been included in the special voters. Not that we were included in the previous ones, but the previous one was a certain level of discretion that allowed us to be brought in.
Doctors, nurses, technical staff.
Yes.
And that's what you think we should do after this election?
Yeah.
Obviously.
Let me give you some more data and then we'll take a break to come back and continue our conversation. So far, we have entered 55 constituencies into our system out of the 275 constituencies. The big picture for the presidential election is that the NDC's John Dramani Mahama is leading by 52.23%. The NPP's Nana Akufo-Addo is following with 46.37%. And the other candidates together have 1.40%. Let me give you a regional breakdown. In the Greater Accra region, there are 34 constituencies in the Greater Accra region. Out of these 34 constituencies, 6 have reported. A lot more to come in. But I will shortly show you the Greater Accra regional map so that you can see now as we begin to make sense. In the Ashanti region, there are 47 constituencies. Only 10 have reported so far. In the Eastern region, there are 33 constituencies. Only 5 have reported so far. In the Western region, there are 26 constituencies. Only 8 have reported so far. In the Northern region, there are 31 constituencies. We've had only 1 coming into our system, 30 more to go. In the Bronga region, there are 29 constituencies. Only 6 have come in so far. Good number of them still to come in. Central region, 23 constituencies. Only 6 have come in so far. Of course, informal information tells us a lot behind the scenes, but like Egbert says, here at the election headquarters, we're dealing strictly with what's been verified. So 23 from the Central region, only 6 have been entered into our system so far. In the Volta region, there are 26 constituencies. Only 10 have been entered into our system, have been verified so far. In the Upper East region, there are 15 constituencies. Not even one has come into our system. And in the Upper West region, there are 11 constituencies. Only 3 have represented so far, about 8 of them still outstanding. It tells you that you're expecting a lot more, to come in, over 220 more constituencies to report. And as they come in, we'll be sharing with you what the regional map is, so that if a particular region is beginning to shape up, regardless of how the redemarcation has affected that region, if a particular region is beginning to shape up, and we are yet to get some more results from some other regions, then we can begin to interrogate what are the registered number of voters in this region and how does it affect the trend. Over the years, we know that the Upper West, Upper East, Northern and Volta regions traditionally vote for the NDC. We know that the Ashanti region has consistently voted for the MPP. The Eastern region from 2000 onwards has voted for the Eastern region. The Brong-Ahafo, the Western, the Central and the Greater Accra regions have swung from year to year. I'll give you the details on our magic wall when we return from this break. Stay with us. This is your election headquarters. Welcome back. This is Newsfile. I'm shortly going to take you to the International Press Center where the NDC's 2012 campaign team is addressing a press conference. Coordinator Elvis Efria is speaking to the press. Let's take a listen.
And former President Obasanjo had to go there to intervene. So what's your response to that?
Well, first of all, as a party, we are not engaged or involved in any such thing. And if they have any difficulties, we are told that that is an electoral commission property. So they should deal with the electoral commission. It has absolutely nothing to do with us. And they should use the appropriate channels. What is unacceptable is to use false information to attempt to incite people. I think it's unacceptable behavior. It is inappropriate, and we have nothing to do with those issues.
Thank you very much. We'll take the last question.
The Electoral Commission. First of all, I don't know anything about it, but I'll let John, the president's spokesman, who has been with the president virtually 24/7, respond to what I'll call a preposterous allegation.
Thank you very much. First of all, we are surprised that discerning Ghanaians can resort to such level of misinformation. Yesterday, we were with the president throughout the evening. The president was at his residence, resting after a very long haul in Bole. It is untrue. It is inaccurate. It is palpable falsehood. There is absolutely no truth in that. The president is a law-abiding citizen. The president has demonstrated beyond every reasonable doubt that he is committed to due process. And so we would encourage Ghanaians to treat these rumors with the contempt that it deserves. But we would equally encourage all political parties to stick and abide by the rules of engagement. At this critical moment, rumor mongering, misinformation, and trying to tarnish people's image is not going to work. Let us rather concentrate on ensuring that we have a successful electoral process. And at the end of the day, Ghana will continue to be the beacon within the sub-region. Thank you. We wish you all the best.
No side.
reporter. Welcome back. This is your election headquarters. We're going to go to one of our reporters who was there to tell us the first part of the press conference, because obviously we missed the first part of the press conference. We just caught the question and answer segment. And what we caught was a call by the NDC's campaign coordinator and by the president's spokesperson to the nation to desist from rumor mongering and people acting on rumors at this stage. But admittedly, we missed the first part of the press conference. So we will shortly go to our reporter who was there to give us an account of what was said in that first part. But for what we have heard, I don't know what you're thinking. Was that in bad taste?
Well, I guess that we have been picking up signals, and I had the first claim that there was some building somewhere which was being besieged by a number of MPP supporters.
We're going to get the full story. Samson Ladi Ayenene is live at that venue. Samson, if you can hear me, tell us what he said.
Also, coordinator of the President John Mahama campaign has said that they are urging their supporters, all party faithful, to remain calm, and those who have not been able to go through the process, who have the opportunity, should do so, and that just most importantly, that everybody should remain calm. But more importantly, I must state that they are asking or calling on the Electoral Commission to ensure that nobody is disenfranchised, as it were, that there are serious challenges that have come up with yesterday's process, and they feel that it is important for the Electoral Commission to attend to the issues that have been raised. And I'm sure that we are familiar with the issues that have come up, including and primarily the mass breakdown of biometric verification equipment, which in some cases it broke down, people could not continue the process, and in some other cases people's fingers were not identified, and so they had to leave the polling stations unhappy. And also you have situations where Electoral Commission officials who were supposed to have been at the polling station by 7 a.m., the opening of polling, and to conduct the process were not available. And some places the ballot materials and other election materials arrived very late, sometimes as late as 1 p.m. These are the issues they are asking and drawing the Electoral Commission's attention to, and asking that the Electoral Commissioner should address them. But more importantly, once again, they are asking all supporters, all NDC faithful, to remain calm. To remain calm. And then also there is this issue that has come up in some section of the media. There is an allegation and report that the president in the night visited the Electoral Commission. The team have denied that categorically. The president's aide, John Jinapor, says that the president all the nights went to relax, and that he went to sleep and he has not gone out to any place. This is your election headquarters on Joy 99.7 FM, and also on TV, on your Joy News channel on Multi TV. So the news conference organized by the John Mahama campaign office is over as we speak. The organizers, or those who address the conference, in Elvis Afriye Ankra and John Jinapor, who is the president's spokesperson. There were other people who were here. Deputy Information Minister James Ejenim Boateng. You had Deputy Youth and Sports Minister. Deputy Youth and Sports Minister Dr. Omane Boama, and the rest of the team. The most important note they have given out is that the supporters, the party faithful, should remain calm, and they have denied categorically in no uncertain terms that reports in sections of the media that the president visited the Electoral Commission is untrue, because the president, upon his return from his constituency in Boli where he voted, went to sleep and to take a rest, actually, and did not go out. And so John Jinapor denied that categorically. They will not take further questions, and the news conference, as we speak, is over. Thank you. This has been your election headquarters reporting from the press center.
Thank you. That's Samson Ladia, and he's standing by at the Electoral Commission, at the International Press Center, where the NDC campaign team just addressed the press. You heard the major submissions that they made. You were doing your analysis.
Yeah, I was making the point that on my way here, I tuned into a radio station, and I had the candidate for the MPP, Mr. Ajaraku, and I think this particular facility is within his constituency, and he was indicating to the reporter that he had received a call about members of his party massing up around this facility, and so he had gone there, and he said he was trying to calm them down, but he was going to get in touch with the higher echelons of his party. And he also made a statement that he had been told that the president had gone to that facility sometime around 11 p.m. last night. And of course, as we heard in the press statement, it looks like the president's team has come out to say that that could not be the case. But I think that we have to be very circumspect. In as much as it has gone well, it is usually after the poll and the collation and rumors and other commentary around who is doing what, which would usually have the capacity to inflame passions. And we have to be very circumspect in ensuring that if we are going to put information in the public domain, one, we must cross-check and we must have evidence to show. It is not simply enough to say that the president went there last night. If anybody has evidence to show that he did, then the best thing to do in the national interest is to bring that forward. We don't want to needlessly incite people. Because when you have people massing up around a facility based on a rumor like this, I think that it can be quite dangerous and destabilizing. So we should desist from that.
Well, is it possible to get us a full text of the statement the NDC read? If it's possible before the end of the program, it would be useful. Even though I concede the report by Samson was okay, but if we could get a full text, I would be most grateful. Question of President having visited the EC, is that what the allegation is?
No.
It makes me remember the alleged meeting Kufuor was supposed to have had with Afarajan. You remember, 2008, the same rumor, the same quality, the same thing. I cannot, in a moment, imagine a president, wanting to do that. They have the machinery to do it with finesse and enough covert, thing, rather than so. If you ask me, my first instinct is to dismiss that. That's the way I proceed on some of these things. And especially in this environment, all sorts of things are thrown out there. So it's important that we heighten our vigilance and, level of caution and what we consume. So I'm not prepared to give this particular allegation any credibility, even though I haven't double-checked things. But I cannot imagine a president wanting to do a thing of that sort. If there are attempts to manipulate, there are many ways they would adopt, rather than the president personally getting involved to the extent of organizing a meeting. I would want to put that aside.
From your knowledge of the political psyche, and just before you go on, from your knowledge of the political psyche, do the parties deliberately throw these things into the air to achieve anything?
I'm not sure the parties as corporate entities. It would be difficult for me to suggest or believe that the parties as corporate entities in a very organized manner decide to feed the public with this. But sections of the party, some individuals in the party for whatever reasons do this. And there are times they send text messages around to selected people, and then if you are not careful, you also forward it, and then it has a chain reaction. So I am not about to think that a party as a party sat down, organized this and said, let's put it out there. having put this aside in terms of allegations that have been made against the president and the denier, and I'm prepared to go with the denier, I'll be honest with you, the import, and that's why I wanted the statement, the full text, so as to be, they're asking the EC to ensure that nobody is disenfranchised. Principle, yes, I'm for that. That's what the EC is to ensure. All of us would love to have every eligible voter enabled to cast his or her vote. That's what we all want. But I am not sure, is it this no verification, no vote?
Yeah.
Because I think it's coming, that's the issue.
Yeah.
And it appears all these political parties had gone to the IPAC and committed themselves to this principle. I heard Mr. Asidu Nketia say that they did it reluctantly, but nonetheless did commit themselves to it. And it appears, and I may be wrong, it appears that perhaps this problem, this complication, has occurred in places that the NDC perceive as strongholds. So they are assuming, safely perhaps, that it may reduce their votes. I believe this is what is coming. This is what has informed a ruling party to hold a press conference. Yesterday it was more of a press statement or so, but I had a coordinator, I think on your station, I had Asidu Nketia too. Yesterday I thought there was a certain panic element in their reaction. That was my first thinking, that there was a panic element in their reaction. I thought it was premature. I thought it was too early for a ruling party to be exhibiting that kind of panic or pressing the panic button. And now holding a press conference a day after the election. In fact, the election hasn't been declared. We are nowhere near declaration. It's not a good sign for me. Okay? I'm not taking away their right to protest, their right to articulate a concern at whatever time. But sometimes this kind of, events before declaration may be a pointer to possible election dispute. People challenging results declared by the Electoral Commission. And coming from a ruling party, I think it doesn't portend well for us.
Dr. White, do you share in this analysis?
Well, I think I will take the rumor first and then come to the second issue that Kweku ended on. I think this rumor thing has two legs. One is, first of all, I think it's very infantile and juvenile. It shouldn't even be allowed. Should have been allowed to even fly in the media without verifying this at all. Notwithstanding all the problems that we have in this particular election, does Dr. Farijan come across to anybody as an individual who could easily be pushed around or be bulldozed around, having presided over this same process for several years and have this record of delivering, has this record of making sure when Ghanaians wanted a change in government, they changed. When Ghanaians wanted to maintain a government, they maintain. It doesn't seem to me that this rumor, we must be careful not to rush into, at the end of the day, blaming the chairman of the Electoral Commission for the final outcome of the elections. I think that the will of the people will ultimately prevail, and that in my mind is what has happened over the years and will continue to happen. Now, on the question of the press statement and then the press conference and then the content of the I think that it is good for any individual at all to be concerned about the potential or the possibilities of disenfranchising people, whether intentionally or otherwise, and irrespective of where it's coming from, as long as it is well framed and well couched, not to necessarily allure to anybody's advantage. I think it should be welcomed. We have to learn through this process. What I see from the, contrary to Kweku's assertion that he saw panic, what I saw from the reaction of the NDC yesterday was one of frustration. It was both Elvis and Abu Jinapor, the spokesperson to the president, who spoke. And the sense, John Jinapor. I confused the two. And the sense I got from them was, look, they've gone around and they are realizing that large numbers of people are in the queue, machines are breaking down, people are not able to vote. And I feel that in my mind, that is something we could interpret more as frustration rather than a panic situation.
Let me just, throw up some numbers. for us to have a chat about. Now, as I speak to you right now, here at the election headquarters, we have keyed in 64 constituencies. 64. Between the last time and now, we've added a few more. 64 constituencies, about 9 more. The two major frontrunners, and I'm sure that's what most people are thinking about. The NDC's John Dramani Mahama is doing 50.05%, and the NPP's Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is doing 48.51%. But what we've done so far amounts to, and you know that for the presidential election, the whole country is one constituency. There are about 14,031,000 registered voters. The total votes that have been counted so far are just 1,989,250 votes, representing about 14% of the total voter population. So yes, whether you're seeing long queues, you know, in areas that you think are your strongholds or not, at least about 14% of the people who are registered have voted already. Still early days yet, and let's put that in, still very early days yet. But it's important to pay attention to where these numbers are coming from. The Ashanti region has reported 14%. They've got a total registered voter population of 2.5 million. Still a long way to go. The Brong-Ahafo region has registered 14% as well. They've got a registered total voter population of 1.2 million people. The Central region has registered 19% so far. They've got a total voter population of 1.231. Now, the Brong-Ahafo region and the Central region have been swing regions in our previous elections, and so there are regions that you want to pay particular attention to. The Eastern region has accounted for 12% of its votes so far, but they've got a total voter population of 1.4. Only 166,000 has come in so far. The Greater Accra region has got 2.7 million registered voters. They have brought in so far just about 11%. That's 304,000 votes. The Northern region has brought in so far just 1% of their votes, and they have a total voter population of 1.2 million. Now, if you look at the Brong-Ahafo, Central, and the Greater Accra numbers that are yet to come in, do you think, therefore, then there's any basis for anybody to either feel panicky or to feel, what was the word? Frustrated. That was the word that Dr. White used.
Well, based on the statistics, no. I don't believe so. But you see, the parties, as Egbert indicated, have their own systems on the ground, and they are checking and collating and transmitting them to the program. So some of them may be aware of a certain trend already, and if you are aware of the trend and you are not getting what you anticipated in terms of the maximum impact, okay, I would concede it may not be panic, it may be frustration, but it still has an emotive element in there, you know, and sometimes it leads to irrationality if you are not careful. When the leaders show the frustration, it's transmitted to the rank and file. They may not be too rational in dealing with the solution. You know, we all been saying this all the time. So yes, it's just too early. I'll be honest with you. Yes. And as I said, I'm not one of those who is very competent in dealing with election polls and statistics. But it's too early based on what you've told us here. You know.
Could you, just a quick one on the statistics you just read. The regional statistical figures you've just given may well be more than what you have there, depending on voter turnout.
Come again.
The regional statistics you've given, like the voter percentages you've given from each of the regions,
yes,
may well be more than what you've given here.
As in what's available on the ground is more than what we have here, or what? I don't quite get it.
The reason I say that is that you are basing the percentages on total number of people in the register in each of these regions, not total number of people who turn out to vote, which we don't know yet.
Yes.
So if you use total numbers, if as are granted a total numbers of people who went out to vote, is far less than, or is lesser than the numbers that you have registered in each of the regions. If you use that number to compute, you might realize that in each of these cases, the percentages reported are more than what you have.
Okay, I can go into the data some more and then tell you the voter turnout in some of these places.
That would
Would
be
would have to dig
we
a
could
bit
also use previous
deeper.
turnouts to kind of just...
And then we can do a certain trend analysis that, usually in this constituency you have an 80% turnout.
That's
Today
right.
they are turning out 90%, and this is the trend. And then we can make some more sense.
Coach, I was just going to say that I think that, for today's agenda elections, in some of these conferences, let's have, the stakes are quite high.
Yep.
And I think that the IGP and all those involved with security need to deploy adequate security to be on standby, because this is when people are going to try to snatch ballot boxes. People who feel that they are losing, people who feel that they are losing out will try to do all kinds of things. So I think that the security agency should be up and doing. We should not allow any slip whatsoever. And then, could you haven't said so also? I think that the law is very clear that every voter shall go. It's imperative shall go through a biometric verification process. This is Regulation 31, Sub-Regulation 2 of CI 75. So on no account should anybody be made to vote. But this Electoral Commission, this NDC press conference and all those that have come up, that there is a building belonging to the EC somewhere, but why would we live in a country where the Electoral Commission, transparent and if you like visible as it is, will have an office somewhere that some of us are hearing for the first time? If it was a recent acquisition, then I believe that at the IPAC level, these things should have been passed down for people to know. Even the residence of the Electoral Commissioner is an open secret. I know where it is, I believe that anyone who wants to know. So the EC is a sacrosanct institution, or it's supposed to be a sacrosanct institution.
But is there a legal obligation for disclosure of offices,
locations
of offices?
No.
I'm just asking.
Okay, let me answer you. Is there a legal obligation for the creation of IPAC?
No.
Yes. But common sense wise, because of the society in which we live.
But if they use a new property somewhere,
really,
they should publish and tell them
not publish, but they can tell election directors in the parties.
No, I'm not sure it is a secret acquisition.
At all, I haven't said so.
Why is it not a secret acquisition?
I haven't said so.
No, I haven't said so. We're thinking aloud.
Yeah.
If something is not a secret acquisition, where is the obligation that they must publish that we have bought this office for
but
this
nobody
purpose?
has said they should publish.
It is also possible that the Electoral Commission may have made mention of this thing, but we really haven't proposed it. Because I remember being in a workshop or a public event at IDEC, where the Nigerian Electoral Commission was there to share their experience, and the EC, the Afarija, was there. And in the process, he talked about the fact that they have backup servers located at different places, so that just in case the system breaks down, they will be able to track it. So it could well be that.
Yeah, but he said they have backup servers at places. He didn't disclose. I sincerely feel that because of the society in which we live in and all these things, at least election directors of the party should know. And then once you have a strong group, after all, if a backup exists because there's a front line, not so. So if I know the front line, and then for purposes of election purposes, you say, okay, because of the strong room concept that we also have backup servers here and there. So deploy. But I'm saying,
shouldn't we instead be encouraging people that you don't need to mass up numbers,
that's right,
based on rumors, whether they've told us or not. You don't need to mass up numbers
you and
based
I
on rumors.
Are very rational beings. We will never go and mass up be in front of any building for whatever purpose. If I have any beef, I'll go to the law abide the law enforcement agencies.
When we were younger, we used to mass
Hold on. But unfortunately, not everyone is like you and I or all of us on this panel. So we need to, diffuse some of these things. After all, if the parties have presence in a strong room, that is the main front line. You are talking of a backup. If there is no front line, there cannot be a backup.
I agree.
So then if you have a backup, let the parties know at a certain confidential level, and let them also, every party put their rep in the backup rooms. Once it's done here, what is loaded here, it's backed up there. We all go. We all
I think this facility, this particular facility is part and parcel of the election system, then
Malik,
with you.
Malik,
but if it's
Abdul Malik.
Chief,
what I'm saying is that I'm finding this repost as in consequence of what Dr. Pesa White said, that he's been at a function where he's heard Dr. Frayan say that, they have backup facilities, somewhere. And I'm saying that I want to believe what he said. And I'm saying that backup, my understanding of IT is that if there's no front line, there cannot be a backup. So if you have allowed me into your front line room, which is your strong room, Why? And if you are just photocopying documents to store at another place, but because of suspicions, why won't you let me know at a certain confidential level?
I think that we are pushing the leg of this matter perhaps too far and feeding the rumor in a manner that will not be very helpful to the general atmosphere at this point in time. Now, it may well be the case that members of IPAC are well aware of where this facility is, or they are well aware of all this, and they have not maybe disclosed it to all of us. So we need to be very, very cautious, because I think that part of this problem is, and excuse me to say, the extent to which some colleagues in the media are quick to report this without fully verifying what exactly the extent.
I mean, yesterday there were media houses that were broadcasting that some people had lost, some people had lost, when indeed they had no basis.
If you change station after station when you drive or when you just sit in here, you'll be surprised at what people are reporting.
Sometimes you think you're in a foreign land.
I mean, it's very interesting. And you know what? At some point, I said to myself, maybe election time is a time when we need the media to converge, where they receive information at the center and then disseminate.
Why are you surprised? This is a nation where a simple single text message announced an earthquake, and war for it. You see, the way we manage information in this country is what has led to all of these things. That is why some of us say that if indeed there are backup servers and what have you, we should know. Why? There are security installations deployed.
The point is that we don't know for sure. We don't know for sure that this is not. It is not known.
No, I am not saying that is the case.
We shouldn't be feeding into the rumor.
Even if it is so.
Okay,
and if anybody has complaints, they should file a formal
where a simple text message triggered all that we saw with respect to an earthquake.
So definitely we are still gullible.
We've got some 10 minutes before we take a break. During the break, we would update our numbers, and then when we come back, we'll tell our viewers and our listeners some more numbers that we are getting, and then we can look at our wall and look at the graph. The key places to watch are, number one, the margins in the strongholds. We need to watch the margins in the strongholds, especially as we look at the regional, pictures. Maybe if I, for instance, take the Upper West region, as you see on our wall now, and perhaps let's just focus our attention on the 2008 runoff, or the 2008 first round and the 2008 runoff, even as we get some more numbers. Today, the Upper West region on our system has just recorded or has just reported here at your election headquarters 14% of its total registered voters. But the traditional picture, at least from 2008 for the first round and runoff, has been that the NDC won the first round in the Upper West region by 106,000 votes. That was 54%, and the MPP followed with 81,000 votes. That was 37%. In the second round, the NDC grew its margins to 134,000 votes. That's about about a 20,000 margin there. And the MPP also grew its votes to 81,561. A very marginal growth. What you want to look out for is that as the Upper West region reports some more numbers, currently they've only reported 14% of their total registered votes. When they hit up to about 50% thereabout, what you want to see is the trend. Is the trend getting better for the NDC that wins the Upper West region, or is the margin closing? That's what you want to look at. Take the Upper East region, and I'm just loading the Upper East region up here on our magic wall. Again, you want to pay attention to the year 2008 first round and second round. The NDC's candidate won by 56%. That was 188,405 votes. Was followed by 118,454. Pretty close. But before we continue, there's been an incident at Jolo where we're told some MPP supporters, including the parliamentary candidate for the area, are said to have stormed the premises of a suspicious property with their own theories. I think it's very close to what we were hearing from that press conference. Gifty Ando Apia is on the line. Gifty.
Yes, hello.
Okay, so these persons stormed which property exactly?
Hello, Kojo.
Can you hear me, Gifty? Gifty, can you hear me?
Yes, Kojo, I can hear you now.
Okay, so tell us what's happened there.
Yes, Kojo, there are a lot of MPP supporters here. many of them, I can count about 200, if my eyes are not misleading me. And earlier on, they were very close to a residence here at Airport West. And what they were saying is that there are allegations that they have heard that there's some ICT manipulations going on in that residence that could manipulate the result. And they have brought, they came with a member of parliament for this area, and she wanted to go inside. But then the police told her that Honorable Damboche was inside there, and so he will come out to brief us. But when he came out, he only said that there's no senior management person in the office there, and so he told them to get to their senior management and then he will get back to them. As I speak with you now, there's been serious security presence. There are lots of policemen here right now who are coming with metal barricades, trying to barricade the area and preventing the supporters from entering the property. But they are still here insisting that they want their members of parliament or their representatives to go in there.
Okay, now Gifty, tell me, do we know whether this is a private property or this is a property that belongs to any institution of state?
It is a private property. It is a private property. They were making allegations that it belongs to an NDC, a top NDC member, but they couldn't get any name for us.
Okay.
But it is a private property.
But you also tell us that Mr. Damboche of the MPP has been allowed in and he's gone out and he's gone in and he's come out to say what?
Yes. When we came here, he was in there. He came out and we're trying to find out from him what was happening in there. He wouldn't talk to us initially. But when he opened up, he told us that there was no senior management person there. He said, we were told that it is a private, it's a residence. But he came out and said, there is no senior management person in the office.
Now, again, help us understand. When you say when he says there's no senior management person there, senior management person of what? This is a private property. Is it a business or somebody's house?
Yes. I think it belongs to, it's a company that has mounted their machinery in there. The details are a bit sketchy now, Kojo, but I think it's a property, but it has an office in there or something like that, because that was what Honorable Damboche was saying, that there's an office in there, but there's no senior member there. So he has told them to get to their senior members and get back to him.
Okay, and now you tell us that there's a lot of security presence there. Those who are watching on television will shortly see live pictures from the venue, but you're telling us that there's a lot of security presence there, and they're trying to...
Security presence here, and the supporters of the MVP here are hooting at them, and they're not throwing things. I've seen they just throw something at the police right now. The members are trying to calm them down, but the people are just not listening.
Okay, let's see how the security control the situation. My director tells me that they are also getting some answers there on the ground in the live television feed that is coming in.
Why can't the police people allow leadership of the political party MPP get in there and assure themselves that nothing untoward is happening there? I think it's most unfortunate, and I believe civil society and the leadership of our country will have to intervene in matters like this.
But Abu, I just want to find out, you are talking about systems to make the elections not transparent, but what are the evidences? What are the evidences to show that whatever is happening is what...
I think the pictures are scrambling right now as our signals don't seem that strong there. Okay, so this is not something that's new. During elections, we hear rumors, and sometimes crowds are charged up because of these rumors. It's a very unhealthy practice that we see sometimes, and the situation is now being diffused. We're trying to see, how the authorities manage to diffuse the situation. What will be your recommendations on how a situation like this is reviewed? Because for those who are familiar with Ghana's electoral process, the numbers will come in.
Spontaneity is a phenomenon that is very difficult to predict. Possibly the only person who can predict spontaneity or spontaneous behavior is God. People try, security may try and all, but this is something that has just, flared up. Thank God the police have actually, moved and are on ground to secure, what have you. There has to be full disclosure. There has to be full disclosure, you see, to ensure that if indeed there's no basis for the fears and suspicions of people, it is immediately quelled. And then if also indeed there's a basis, major announcements have to be made and investigations have to be undertaken swiftly in a matter of hours. Those who have to be apprehended ought to be apprehended and all those things. So I just think that we must all comport ourselves in line with the laws of this republic. We must all. You see,
there are party leaders of the MPP there. What do you think should be their posture?
Their posture is to appeal for calm. Whilst they're the leaders. I mean, when we were students and we used to go on a Luther and what have you to trying to get to the castle. Yeah, long haul. They detain us at Independence Square and ask 4, 5, 6 of our leaders to step out of the crowd and go to the castle gates to present a petition. So yes, there may be a crowd, but there must be a cordon. You understand? They can stay behind at an appreciable place. And then, Dambutri, I'm told, is on ground. Maybe 1 or 2 people can join. And then there can be some kind of discussions, And then oftentimes in situations, when the leaders come out, they need to speak to the crowd themselves. It is no policeman who should come and speak. Because the people will not listen. They will listen to their own leaders in such situations. So I think that we have the necessary competencies to deal with some of these things. But transparency, fullness, full disclosure, and all those things, very important.
Dr. White, what do you make even of the first line of action where crowds mass up when they hear some sort of rumor itself? That first line, even before now you get to how to manage or deal with it.
Well, I think it's the product of spontaneous behavior. When people have a shared feeling about a particular thing and they hear something in relation to that, you will see all of them gravitating towards that and to converge. And what we often tend to forget is that at that moment, people lose their individual rationality. They, in fact, transfer their individual rationality to a group thinking. And in the midst of that, people will do things that if you leave them alone, they will probably never have done by themselves. And so, as much as possible, in moments like this, we need to kind of manage these kind of situations if they arise, and where necessary, prevent them from happening. But what is important is that if I were a member of a particular or a political party and I hear that 1 or 2 of my leaders are there, I have no business, going there really. Because I will anticipate that the leadership will eventually communicate something to me, or they will have the opportunity to communicate whatever is going on. But I think that in order to diffuse this situation as soon as possible, there is a need for full disclosure about what this property is, what goes on in this property, how long has it been in existence, who is involved in this property, who owns it, what do they do, is it a business? Because the reason I raise these issues is that there is no clarity whether this is purely private property, public property, belonging to the EC, belonging to who, we don't know.
Because there are conflicting reports. I think at the press conference, somebody made a comment that it's an EC facility. And then we're hearing from our reporters on the ground that it's a private facility. There's no basis there. Let me quickly take your comments, and then I'll tell you. We have now received results from 70 constituencies here at your election headquarters. 70 constituencies. The numbers are changing. The NDC's John Dramani Mahama is down now to 49.98%. The MPP's Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo is at 48.53%. Quickly, let me hear your thoughts, Dr. Park. Let's feel free and make our
there's a distinction, and I think a very qualitative one, between rumor and intelligence. You pick up information, you verify it, it has its own quality. In an election environment of this sort, the rumors just keep coming. So it's important for parties and organizations to verify, develop the intelligence capacity of their parties and be sure that this is conk. Now, when you have that, you proceed in a certain manner. There are observers out there. There's the ECOWAS observer team, there's the CODIO, if you don't trust the security services that much, even though there's nothing wrong if you hint them as well, because they must come to the area and seek to police the situation. So there can be a fallback agency that you also hint. But because of the nature of this, you can pull in CODIO, you can pull in ECOWAS. We have to be imaginative, we have to be innovative, we have to be creative, knowing that if we are not careful, if you don't package some of these things well, and the delivery, and it goes out there to the rank and file, some of them on their own would proceed to their destination, the target. And when they get there, they have their own prescriptions, how to cure the mischief, perceived mischief, that might not even exist. So, I think that it is how the organizations process information that come to them and deliver the information to the appropriate people, the target groups that they must work with to deal with this matter. Okay? So I'm not very comfortable with how this matter has been handled.
What would you tell the party leaders directly? I know. I know all of us around the table have relationships with the party leaders. So while we maybe send them text directly,
just like I thought the NDC's press conference was not the best, and unfortunately because I don't have the text, I'm very cautious in how far to go with my judgment. I still think, and if I am presuming that the earlier report we got is accurate, that the parliamentary candidate of the constituency on the ticket of the NPP was heard alluding to this facility and what might be going on there. So you see that it means the rumor is giving a certain
impression, legitimacy, something of that sort, and it gingers. For I'm not sure how party rank and file will move to a zone if they have not been triggered by a certain information that comes from a higher level or a middle level that has some credibility and weight. Okay, so please let's handle this thing carefully. Everybody knows where man's sentiments are relative to this.
But these are national.
Let me have a bite on this.
Everybody knows where I stand.
It's not a secret.
I am not prepared to get us into
condone any wrong.
We ought to be very
careful. No, wrong is wrong.
A nation is bigger than any.
Let me have my bite on this issue. I think that,
and then I'll give you a breakdown of the 70 constituencies.
Quite generally, I think that it is important for leadership to send the right signals. The issue of calling for cooler heads and calmness must be something that we should continue to admonish them to do. But leaders have a lot of influence. That is why people sometimes are even willing to die for them. So what they do and the signals they send, dictates the behavior of their followers. So given that at least we've seen some leadership of the NPP in the vicinity, I would hope that they would use that platform and the media houses present to call for calmness and for cooler heads to prevail. Because, whatever this is and whatever the facility may be there for, I'm sure we will be able to get to the bottom of it, particularly when I've heard that Obasanjo is even in the vicinity.
Talking of Obasanjo, sorry to interrupt you, the ECOWAS Observer Mission, including former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, had to intervene to calm nerves, we are told. We've got a bit of footage of that, and I'm sure we'll share it with you sometime very shortly if you're watching us on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. Can we see that footage?
In this area. Okay. Sammy, there's an electoral commission installation here. We as political actors are not aware of this. So we wanted to find out what is it that is supposed to be working for us and we are not aware of.
Are you a member of the electoral commission?
No, I'm not a member of the electoral.
It's our parliamentary candidate.
Indeed, I'm the MP elect for this person.
Then, honorable,
let him speak.
You have an independent electoral commission. Its job is to independently, neutrally, impartially conduct the election. Its job is also to do its job.
You want to arrest him for expressing
Now, please, you cannot.
Excellency, I'm the deputy communications director of the opposition.
It does not matter who you are. Listen.
This is what they have put up here.
Yeah.
It's unfair. Yeah. We believe they are trying to doctor the results.
Okay, you tell President Kufuor about it, yes. And I will tell President Kufuor about it.
Yes.
All right. Now, The point I'm saying to you, the Electoral Commission did not deny that they make use of this private company, just like banks make use of it, ADB makes use of it to transmit information. They do not deny that. They themselves said, look, our job is to provide connectivity. That is connecting EC regional from one region to another and to the center. There's nothing wrong in that. That is the normal, and they don't need to. They have agreement with EC for that, and I have asked them to go in. You tell them what you saw when you went in.
Yes, we went in, we saw the equipment, and in fact this is a private company offering services of connectivity, not only to the Electoral Commission, but also to various clients as banks. And they have assured us that they are just ensuring the connectivity. They have nothing to do with the data they are transmitting. And anyway, the political parties can cross-check the result of what is transmitted to NEC. And if there is any variance, they can protest. But they are not doing anything apart from providing connectivity. This is what, and they worked with the National Commission in 2008. They told us that this is not the first time that the Electoral Commission is working with them. They have an official agreement with the Electoral Commission which can be verified.
Obviously, I see the point is that
the party's position, the NPP's position is that we're not aware of this installation.
You don't need to be aware.
We need to be aware.
Okay, if you want to be aware.
Otherwise, for the sake of transparency.
If you need to be aware, go to the Electoral Commission and say, look, do you have
who have access to this building? They have never invited the NPP to the...
And it's even took you 30 minutes before they allow you inside.
What we are saying is that we will not sit down for this to continue. We will close it down ourselves, or the better close it down. We will not tolerate the doctrine of results. It is illegal, it is criminal.
It took you 30 minutes before they allow you into the building.
Allow that.
Welcome back. It's 20 minutes to midday here on Joy 99.7 FM and Accra and affiliates across the country. This is your election headquarters. You had former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who is leading the ECOWAS and AU Observer Mission, and engaging with some leadership of the MPP who were reporting that they had received reports that there was something untoward going on in that facility, and you heard the answers that he gave them. We shared with you pictures just before this of what the situation there is now, and you heard our reporter give to you on the ground tell us that there was a strong security presence and they were trying to calm the situation. Let me go around our console here for your quick comments on this one, and then we'll take a break. When we return, we've received results from 70 out of the 275 constituencies. I'll tell you what percentage of the total registered votes that amounts to, and then we'll begin an interrogation of what it looks like on the electoral map.
Yeah, Kojo, I was finishing my point, and indeed, I think that the comments by Obasanjo are right on point. Truly, this shouldn't be anything that should raise eyebrows and suspicions at all. And as he has said, the parties have the capacity to cross-check. I mean, in this day and age, we all know, we've stated here, that polling station by polling station, constituency by constituency, they are able to collect their own figures. So, I mean, the days when figures could be concocted and imposed on constituencies, I think that those are long gone. And if everyone has been diligent, then I don't see why we should be worried about some company that is only providing a service, also providing services to banks, should cause us to feel that something untoward is happening. So I think that we should be cautious. We should be alert, we should be vigilant, but we shouldn't be impulsive and reactionary, particularly so when we cannot verify the information. Because by and large, it's not usually the poll and the casting of the ballot. The issues usually come around the collation and suspicions around who is doing what. And if we can manage this very sensitive and delicate period well, and allow for the citizens who have not had a chance to cast their ballot to do so peacefully, then I think that we will be able to come out of this very successfully in spite of all of our challenges. But let me use this platform to also caution media houses about a directive that was given through a joint communique by the NMC and the NCA. that we are going to sanction, as a member of the NCA, that we are going to sanction those media houses which are going to allow their platforms to be used to sensationalize and to incite people. They should be very mindful not to do anything that has the capacity to undermine the peace and security of this nation. Because at the end of the day, what we all want is to move the nation forward. So anything that has the capacity of derailing our progress, even our democracy, certainly we should guard against. And may the best candidates and the best parties be victorious, but we should not destroy our country for the sake of feeling that our candidate should have won if the facts and the votes do not support that.
And as we speak, we have live visuals of police presence at the gates of that facility. It's a private company which has been contracted by the EC to provide transmission services. That's what Olusegun Obasanjo, who is leading the ECOWAS AU Observer Mission, is saying. What are your thoughts?
Yes, now at least we are getting some information. It's more light than heat. I'm told it's an Israeli company, and apparently they are doing a lot with the EC in terms of connectivity and all the rest. It looks as if Egbert, I would concede, had a point. You see, if it is true, the info I'm getting, that in terms of the backup, principally is this group in terms of the EC thing, then I have a feeling that it would have been useful if the EC had made a certain disclosure to the stakeholders in terms of the location and this facility. I still stand by the fact that if information is well processed, and you take the intelligence out of the rumor and apply the intelligence properly, we will not have a crowd massing up. Because let's assume that information came to party leaders that this may be happening at this facility. First of all, the EC hadn't informed them, so they had every right to be called suspicious. But if you do verification of that information and apply it properly, you go to the appropriate quarters and get them to give you even access to the place to realize, find out exactly what is happening. But it looks as if that group, that company, is doing a lot with the EC. I've just been informed by my very reliable source that in terms of the backup, they hold the thing, and that assuming, well, it's Anas who just informed me. So if Anas is telling me,
no, I thought you intercepted, but since you've done full disclosure,
he just called to tell me,
full disclosure,
and that if anything were to go wrong there right now, this whole election.
That's right.
You see, and so it's important that people keep their calm and stay away from
this. Yes, so we've got to be very careful, but perhaps communication, and then those who intercepted the rumor, if had also applied it properly, gone to the right targets, I'm not sure there will be a mass.
Okay, so for all of us again around the table, I mean, I know we have contacts across the divide, contacts in various places. If you can send them a text, if you can share a word with them that, listen, we need to be very responsible. We need to be careful how we handle some of these situations. I'm sure it will serve us all better. Chief Dr. White, let me take your thoughts and then I'll go for a break. When we return, we've received results from 70 constituencies right now. I'll give you the breakdown. I'll tell you the regions they are coming from and what to look out for. Chief.
I just want to add my voice to the calls for peace and calm as well as restraint. I think that there's been a certain, if you like, break in information management, and so people have heard it. Let me tell you from where I sit what has actually triggered this thing. Word started going around that, there's a place there being managed by some Israelis and that all kinds of things are being done there, and actually some NDC bigwigs had been in and out of the place in the last 3 days. For example, I mean, if you're a party supporter and you hear this, you on the other side, you definitely will have your hackles up. That is the point. So now that the full disclosure has come, let the EC meet the party leaders there, take them through what is happening there, and let them all come out and issue a statement, with one voice in unity, saying that, well, we are happy that nothing untoward has happened, blah blah blah, and that we can assure you that now we even have people on ground for everybody to know what is going on, because nobody is going to live there as it is. I'm sure that people will insist that all party reps then must report there, and then if even there are other such service providers, full disclosure must be made now at a certain executive level for political. But once again, the call really is for peace and calm. nobody should take the law into their hands. It is somebody's property. If you end up breaking it or destroying anything, the law will take its course. And I don't think that we need to dent our, if you like, work that has been done so far with any of these aberrations that are threatening us.
And I also, I'm getting information that, you know, there are political leaders that are taking advantage and are granting interviews and are saying all sort of things. Right? Let us remind the media that we have a responsibility. You don't need to offer anybody a live interview. You can have an interview and edit it appropriately so that you are sure that whatever you're putting on air, you know, is in the best interest of the country.
The media could do its own independent verification.
Before you go on air and make some noise about it.
We can.
Well, I mean, I would say that this is not the time to poison the air. We need to be extremely careful, and we need to exercise extreme restraint. One of the things that keep popping up in my head is, if this is a private entity providing service as a private entity, how did it come to be associated with the problem that we have right now? I mean, has somebody really seen political leaders going there, or is somebody aware of the information prior and has decided to do mischief with it at this point in time? I mean, we need to be extremely careful, because the process of electioneering also should offer us an opportunity to build trust in our institutions. Look, given the information we have now, it is in the interest of all the political parties and the nation that that particular property or facility is protected. Sure. Because the political parties that are amassing themselves there now, and the nation stands to lose if we don't have a backup should something go wrong. So we really, really need to, encourage people who are there now to calmly return home. Look, this election should be allowed to play itself out naturally. The will of the people will eventually trump. There is always two products out of every election: losers and winners. And people who have put themselves as the major actors in the electionary process must always prepare themselves. And I said here yesterday that it is important that people prepare both their losing and their winning speech. One must be in your left pocket, one must be in your right pocket, depending on the outcome of the result and the one you pull, and then give to the public. This is the only way you can be a realistic politician. But to go into an election, be you a voter or a candidate with the view that I can only win, then you have become, a potential danger to the society, and we must discourage that.
Okay, so my guests here are going to help us by trying to communicate with their friends across the political divide, so that the leadership show leadership in instances like this. In the meantime, while we're here, we've received reports from 76 constituencies. 76 constituencies. I'll be giving you the breakdown shortly, but first let me go to Zabzugu, where we're told there are a few challenges. Who do we have on the line? Vigno?
Yes, Prosper Vigno.
Prosper, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning, Prosper. What's happening there? Is voting still taking place, or are they supposed to be just collating results?
Well, since last Friday, everything has been calm. Everything has been okay. People came out in their numbers and voted. You could see old men taking part in this voting exercise to exercise their franchise, of course. And from last night to this morning, I think we had a bit of a challenge in one or two of the ballot polling stations, where because of light, the challenge in lightning, they weren't able to finish with their counting and everything. So they decided to complete that this morning. So one of the polling stations were actually casting their votes this morning, and up to now I think they've finished, and then results are being collated. But there is a very challenging news right now, which has prevented the EC from announcing the results. And because of that, we don't really have facts. What we have here is the result that we have, collated from the various polling stations that we've been able to organize. It will be of the best interest to know that in this constituency we have 56 polling stations, and all of them, except one, have been brought, and then we have results for all of them. Currently, the situation at hand right now is that one polling station ballot boxes cannot be found, both the presidential and then the parliamentary. But the police is doing everything possible to investigate and go into that issue in order for it to be retrieved. Now, as I talk to you, the electoral commissioner, or like the director of the EC and the BNI and the police commander and some party agents are holding a closed door meeting as to how to overcome that challenge that we have at hand currently.
Okay, Prosper, now if you can raise your voice a little bit, it will serve us better because then we can hear you better. Let me see if I understand you. They can't find one ballot box. Is this...
Two ballot boxes.
Two of them?
Yes, two of them.
Okay, now are these two boxes from yesterday's election, or these are boxes that are supposed to be used today?
No, they are boxes from yesterday's election. According to the presiding officer for that police station, they said that they finished their exercise somewhere around 1 o'clock, and they have to even call on the security to escort them from one of the remote villages to the EC office. So they brought and submitted everything to them. They submitted the two ballot boxes to them. And currently, as of this morning, around somewhere 5 o'clock, 5:30, when we needed this thing to be added to the others in order to make pronouncement, even though there was one police station that was still voting by then. Okay, as of this morning, they were still voting. So when we're waiting for them to also finish and bring them, I think the EC came out to announce that two of the ballot boxes cannot be found.
Where were they kept?
Yes, according to the police commander, he said he personally escorted the presiding officer to the collation center and then handed everything over to them at the collation center. And from what I hear from the collation center, they also said after that delivery, they also delivered everything to their EC security, who was in charge or who is supposed to be packing all the ballot boxes into their office after 2 a.m. this morning. So that's where they were kept.
So now the police commander and the EC officials and the party officials are trying to see how they'll resolve that situation.
Yes, they are trying to.
How are the party agents and the electorate and the persons around responding to this new challenge that they've got to deal with?
Of course, if you were to be at the losing side, definitely you will pose this challenge, and if you are to be at the winning side, definitely you will support it. Okay. And the electorates are really expressing some concern. But situations here in Zabzugu is really very calm. I'm sure the electorates are just waiting patiently for the outcome. So everything is under control.
Okay, I hear you. I trust that they will be able to find ways of resolving this challenge. Thank you very much for bringing us this update. We're 5 minutes away from midday. This is your election headquarters. Join you on television, on radio, and online as well. Interesting story there from Zabzugu. And I think this is one of the questions that you were asking about where those boxes were going to be kept overnight.
So what happened? What was the compromise situation there?
Here
what was the arrangement?
Here in Accra, some people, I think the Kwashima area or somewhere, somebody just sent me a message. When the situation cropped up, they all came to an agreement and slept. The agents and the officials, they slept at the police station.
Yes. Right.
So today,
we're told in parts of the Ashanti region as well, that was exactly what they did. They said, okay, guess what? We'll all leave it here and we'll all sleep here with our torchlights.
But what was the party leadership's position? Because it was a bit conflicted. See, you had the agents...
Because of the EC's inability to give specific directives, which confused the situation.
If the parties had come out, we would have probably sitting here criticizing them for taking the lead in providing directives on this. The EC should have basically said, look, this is the situation. Party agents should accompany the ballot box or should stay away and let the police handle it. The statement yesterday was so brief, basically... people who couldn't cast their votes will be given the opportunity, and then you ask yourself, how do you feel the vacuum of all the uncertainties that were embedded in that? And I think that's part of the problem.
But the EC has traditionally adopted an approach, when it comes to collating results. Now listen, we'll look up and see if those numbers make any difference.
Sure.
If not, we'll still go ahead.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Well, but
is that a healthy practice?
I don't think so.
No, it can never be. I mean, you can do better than that.
Mathematically. If you recall, was it the 2000 or 2008 elections? No, 4 or so. 3 constituencies hadn't been declared.
I think it was 2004.
I think so. The overall national one was because the totality, even if you give all to one side, wouldn't change. So mathematically, it makes sense. So that you move the nation and the elections forward. But in any case, it's better to avoid this situation I mean, this is going to reinforce that lack of confidence in the kind of system we put in place to protect the ballot. I mean, overnight, 2 ballot boxes get missing.
Kojo, I think that, you know, in as much as I've always been a strong advocate in protecting and championing the integrity of the Commission, it is only fair that we agree that there have been some serious lapses. I mean, the statement came late. We had been calling for the EC to speak publicly severally until Christian Osupari finally called in here. And even that was several hours before the official statement about what to do came into being. And as Mike said, it was very brief. There was no sense of direction. And that was why we had even other incidents. I don't know how the police resolved it, but even in Bolga, I remember that there was a report that was coming into Metro TV suggesting that some of the people were preventing the police from taking the ballot boxes into custody at the police station. So if they had given clear direction, then the political parties would then have known the instructions that they would then have given to their agents. But because they didn't do that, naturally the police had to feel responsible of securing the ballot boxes. And now we hear that some 2 ballot boxes cannot be found. And you ask yourself, whose fault is it?
Well, it's almost midday. Let me remind you that you can join us with your thoughts. And particularly if you are in one of those polling stations that is voting today, tell us what the situation is there on the ground. You can send your feedback to us on Facebook. You can go to facebook.com/joynewsontv. You can also go to facebook.com/joy997. If you're on Twitter, our Twitter handles are @joynewsontv and @joy997. If you want to send us a text, it's 1760 and 1422. And if you want to send us a photo or a comment on WhatsApp, it's on 0544 334 722. We're streaming live on myjoyonline.com/myjoyonline YouTube. That's myjoyonline.com/myjoyonline-tube. I beg your pardon. Let me take that again. myjoyonline.com/myjoyonline-tube. We're going to take a break at this moment. When we return, I'll give you a breakdown of the 76 constituencies that we have in so far. The NDC's John Dramani Mahama, 51.04%. The MPP's Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, 47.47%. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's 15 minutes after midday. We are extending Newsfile by some extra 16 minutes. So it means we're going to end at 1 p.m. and then we'll get a new panel here at our election headquarters to help us out. I want to tell you a little story of what our electoral map here looks like. We have, as I speak to you, and that's what we're going to do for the final bit of our discussion. We're going to look at a few of the numbers that are coming in. As I speak to you, we have got numbers coming in from a number of constituencies. Just want to pull that up here on the system, and then I can tell you what the numbers are so far. 76 constituencies have reported their numbers so far. And out of those 76 constituencies, there's a picture that is emerging. The total registered voters in these 76 constituencies represent 22% of the total registered voters on the voters register. My colleagues are asking us to give them a few minutes to give us the turnout breakdown by region. But as at now, for the total votes we have received, there are 14 million registered voters. 3.1 million of them have had their votes counted so far. In the Ashanti region, 25% of their registered voters have had their votes counted so far. They have got 625,000 out of 2.5 million votes in so far. They've still got a long way to go. In the Brong-Ahafo region, 19% of those who have or who are on the register have had their votes counted so far. That represents 236,000 votes out of 1.2 million votes. In the central region, 30%, and mind you, the central region is one of the swing regions, 30% of those on the electoral roll in the region have had their votes counted so far. That represents 1.2 million votes. We've still got a long way to go, about 70% more yet to come in. In the eastern region, we have got 28% of those who are on the electoral roll in that region. That's 1.4 people on the roll. Only 400,000 of them have had their numbers come in. In the Greater Accra region, there are about 2.7 registered voters. Only 16% of them have had their votes come in so far, representing about some 454,000 votes. In the northern region, there are about 1.2 million people on the voter register. Only 1% have come in. We're having a few challenges, as we are hearing this morning, but we're watching. The numbers will come in. We'll add them to the roll. In the Upper East region, there are about 565 registered people on the voter roll. Only 2% has come in. In the Upper West region, there are 364,000. Only 30% is coming. In the voter region, there are about 1.1 million people on the voter roll. Only 33% of them have had their numbers come in. And in the Western region, there are 1.4 people on the voter roll. Only 37 of them have had their numbers come in. All in all, 22% of the total number of voters on the register are still in. We haven't even hit about 50, at least on the collation that we are doing here. Yes, you hear all sorts of things, but no, you've got to wait until you get the numbers verified and then you put them in the system. And for what we've put in here, it represents about 22% of the voters on the voter roll. Gentlemen, is it still a bit too early to make any sense out of what's happening, or are we beginning to get to a critical mass from which we who watch at home, not the parties themselves who may be privy to some other numbers, but we who watch at home can begin to now appreciate a certain picture?
I think if we continue this trend, we probably will have to wait until we get a total of about 80% of total turnout coming in before we can form a clear picture of what is likely to emerge. 22% is still way too low, and people need to hold their jubilation or otherwise for now and still continue to remain calm until the final results coming from other constituencies.
What we're doing so far is streaming live on www.myjoyonline.com/myjoyonlinetube. The address again is myjoyonline.com/myjoyonlinetube. Egbert.
Yeah, I also think that it is early days yet, but as I have earlier alluded to, the parties themselves as stakeholders, major stakeholders in this, have a fair idea at this stage where they are. The caution is always that, okay, you just wait for the EC to certify and then you know that you are home and dry. But bearing any last minute, changes and glitches here and there or challenges, I think that the party that knows that it is in the lead knows itself. And the party that knows that it is trailing the party, in the lead also knows itself. And it shows in body posturing, it shows in all kinds of press conferences and what have you. But, well, this is election headquarters. Caution is a key word here, and so one has to be careful. But I still think that it is looking good.
Are you privy to some information we don't have? Are you privy to some information we don't have?
He's trying to pull a quick Vandal style. And since I'm his deputy, I think that I'm most appropriately positioned to challenge that assertion.
Don't worry, but whatever it is, I think that the writings and the signs are very clear on the wall. It definitely is going to be. I'm being cautiously optimistic with respect to whether there will be a second round, but I think that there will not be the need for a second round. I think.
Dr. Park.
Well, I also believe that there wouldn't be a second round, but whether the lack of a second round is going to inure to Machi's favored group, we are yet to see. Because some can also argue that this attempt to mass up at a unit that is supposed to work on the results and the collations as a backup could also be because some people are feeling jittery, and therefore they may be interested in disrupting the process. So we can look at body language, we can also look at action. Yeah, that is what you call vigilance. I would also call what you describe as body language being cautious rather than a sign of the resignation. So, I mean, there's a lot to go about, but I think we would agree. Senior, I'm sure, would agree with me when I say that Mike's assessment is fair. It will be difficult for us to make any serious projections until at least we pass the 50% mark. And then once we begin to get a clear picture about the so-called strongholds and swing states in terms of the voter turnout, then at that point we can make some private projections whilst we wait for, the Electoral Commission to come up with certified results.
Yeah, same here. It's too early. I mean, to make any sense out of this numbers. Greater Accra.
At what point would you feel comfortable? 50%, 60% of the,
Yeah, from 55, 60 going. One can start making a trend projection. But right now,
we're just at 22%.
You have to be a magician to start making a projection. Greater Accra is 16, only 16% has come in.
Yeah, I think so. Let me just go back to
Accra is about 2.7 million, you said. Huge numbers out there. We're waiting. The northern region, 1%. That's according to you.
Yeah.
And it's 1.2 million.
They have 1.2 million people on their voter register.
That's right.
We have received votes for only 14,000 people. The total votes cast, and there are actually only 14,000 valid votes so far. We've received votes of 15,000 from the northern region. Just 14,000 of them are valid, and that represents just about 1% of their total.
It's just too early. You can't make any sense out of it. And that's where the verification complications too are. And I believe the press conference was linked to that. They didn't. I'm not sure if they said so, but I'm deducting from what had happened yesterday to today. So it's too early.
Does it strike you as interesting that today we haven't had that many reports of difficulties in the polling stations where this exercise is going on? We've had, just a few reports that they're having
maybe the machines
difficulties.
The new ones. There was pressure, too much pressure on the machines. I'm sure there are certain constituencies where they aren't voting at all. They finish counting. Those machines may have been redeployed to that site. So I'm not sure we are going to have the same intensity or the impact of the complication.
And the other aspect, quickly, if I may chip in, is also that the EC will now have the capacity to move personnel.
Sure.
Some of it also had to do with the lack of technical ability to operate them. So that, they now are free because most of the country, there's just a very small percentage left. So that not just having excess pieces of equipment and probably several more backups, but also you would then have the luxury of redeploying personnel that have been tried and tested and are better capable of operating. So let's hope it just goes on smoothly.
Okay, you're making a point.
It's possible also that the euphoria now is more about results than the numbers that are voting right now. So almost all of us, including media men, have shifted our attention to tracking the incoming results. Tracking the results as opposed to following up on what is happening out there. So it shouldn't be surprising maybe if later in the day we hear that there are still problems. But I want to believe that given that the huge majority of the constituencies in the country have been covered, machines will now be available, personnel will be available to cover any difficulties that may have arisen.
I would want us to find out what happened last night to the ballot boxes. Generally, now we know of 2 that got missing. But if you can get us the information, because it will help to bring trust and more confidence into the system. That after all the agitation, things were properly protected and preserved. I don't know.
I'm sure Selim and those in our coalition room are going to quickly get a word from the various places where they had to wait and come back today so that we can get a sense, just like you were asking about.
I'm also, going forward, I'm also worried that the CI-75 does not make any contingency plan for what has happened at Zabzugu Tatale, where people have voted, let's say yesterday. Today you wake up and you can't find a ballot box. You are not allowed to go back and vote, but we should factor some of these things into it as a disincentive for people who may want to, steal ballot boxes, so that if you take it away, we'll vote again tomorrow and ensure that everything is done correctly and on point. But as it is, if those ballot boxes are not found, there's no legal basis or justification to run the poll in that constituency again. And then, it brings integrity issues, generally speaking.
Yes, the clarity. I mean, there was a report, I'm not sure whether it was on My Joy Online or another website, about a DCE who had been busted for taking. Was it true?
Again, there are things we have heard. I am not sure we have carried a clear report on that. I haven't followed a clear report on our platform on that. We've picked up also
somewhere in the north.
Yeah, somewhere in one of the northern regions. But I would, just decline from getting into it because we haven't gotten
I thought that was
any clarity on it.
Well, there was another side that people were saying that no, he was rather actually trying to help in ferrying the EC staff who said the machine had broken down, so he was ferrying them to a place for it to be fixed, and then people misconstrued it and thought that he was up to something mischievous, and so in the end when the police came in, he was just kept giving protective custody, and then I think it's...
But there are reports in this morning's newspapers about some persons who tried to snatch ballot boxes and were severely beaten. Some were arrested by the police in the I think there was one in the Ashanti region, and I don't know why nobody would want to snatch a ballot box.
People's will.
This one says, where's the story? Yes, 2 daring ballot box snatchers met their Waterloo yesterday in 2 areas in the Ashanti region as vigilant voters nearly lynched them. One guy apparently picked up the box, we're told, around a polling station at Ahria Zongo, around 3:30 p.m. near Kumasi. We actually showed a picture of it here, to our viewers.
Yesterday.
Yeah. And, when he picked it up, he wanted to run away with it. And, people came to retrieve it from him and decided to help him find somewhere else to stand. But eventually the police got involved and he was taken into custody. A second person also was apprehended by the voters who were there. And the police also intervened in that case. So let me just remind you, now we've got 85 constituencies. 85 constituencies verified and uploaded here at your election headquarters. The 85 constituencies come from the 10 different regions. I just want to give you a quick breakdown of where they are coming from. In the Ashanti region, 15 constituencies have reported their numbers. In the Bronga region, 8 constituencies have reported their numbers. In the Central region, 9 constituencies have reported their numbers. In the Eastern region, 11 constituencies have reported their numbers. In the Greater Accra region, 8. Northern region, just 1. Upper East, just 1. Upper West, 6. Volta, 13. Western, another 13 have reported their numbers. Let me give you a breakdown of what these numbers say right now. The CPP's presidential candidate, Abu Sakara Foster, has 0.18%. The DFP's candidate has 0.00%. The DPP's candidate has 0.00%. The independent candidate has 0.11%. The NDC's John Dramani Mahama has 51%. The MPP's Nana Akufo-Addo has 47.46%. The PNC's Hassan Ayarga has 0.19%. The PPP's Papa Kwesi Indum has 0.68%. The percentage of rejected votes so far, pretty insignificant, 0.00%. The GCPP has 0.31%. The UFP has 0.07%, all making 100%. You see that, the breakdown on your television screen right now. But as my guests have alluded to, we have got only 22% of the registered votes on our electoral roll accounted for so far. A little over 70 or just about 78% of the votes left to go. And so it's still early days, a bit too early for us to tell a trend. Kweku says when we hear about 55 to 60%, then we can make a trend. You are saying when we hear about...
I think about 50%, but it would depend on the distribution of where the data is coming from.
I say we have to wait way into 80% thereabout. The reason is that there are some surprises in terms of the margins that are coming from some of the constituencies. So if you look, when you started, Nana and John Mahama had closer margins. It widens, it closes up, and it's all a reflection of the margins that both of them are pulling in in each other's strongholds. So way above 50%. If we continue to see this trend, we may still have to wait until the final results comes up.
Okay.
I also want to actually stick my neck out really when we are about 80%. Though I think that from my unofficial studies and what have you, I know.
From your juju and tricks. Yes. From your juju and tricks.
What is this on
I don't do juju. I don't do
He's looking into the crystal ball.
That's all.
Okay, I'll follow you after this program.
Yeah. What do you know that others don't know?
A lot.
Maybe he's consulted Father Baku.
I should be there.
A lot.
He knows. It is tradition. He doesn't get to go there without my presence.
A lot.
So I'm going to have to see the
His back was giving both of you different information.
We're going to get some information from from the Ashanti region very shortly, particularly in that constituency where there was the chemical spill and it was feared it was going to affect the polls. We'll get an idea of how it affected the poll at the end of the day. That's one to watch. I'm just getting some information coming in. Okay, we will clear that up and then I'll let you know. I would also be taking you back here to East Legon, where earlier a crowd had gathered on some suspicions that something untoward is going on in the premises of a private company. We are being told, that that's, yes, a private company, but they offer some backup and transmission services for the Electoral Commission. A bit of misinformation having gone on there. Crowds massed up there. A number of party leaders of the MPP gathered there with some supporters. The head of the ECOWAS team, Olusegun Obasanjo, and a few other observers came in there. They went into the building. They came back, gave them information. A bit of a, slightly heated situation there, but we are monitoring how the situation is calmed down. Again, we call on party leaders to show leadership in instances like this. There was something we spent a lot of time talking about yesterday, and that's something we can tell for a fact right now. And I want us to spend a bit of time as we wrap up Newsfile this morning talking about it. It's becoming obvious that the smaller parties haven't done as much as they told us they were going to do. A lot of noise, a lot of promise, but in terms of the percentages, indeed, if you put their total percentiles together, it's just about 1.48% when you put all of them together. And one of my guests yesterday was suggesting that, if this whole total election is costing us about $100 million, then it means that we've had smaller parties that have cost us $100 million if we don't get a winner here and have to go into a second round. What is it that accounts for this whole cycle of smaller parties sometimes showing so much promise, but yet when the numbers come in, then there's disappointment?
Well, Kojo, I think that we must first agree that the Constitution allows for people to form political parties once they meet the criteria that is laid out. So it is their right to do so. But whether they are going to be able to make an impact in terms of electoral fortunes is another issue. It is quite possible that some of these smaller parties, probably based on ideological reasons or sometimes even economic or even just for the sake of recognition and popularity, would like to contest, even though they know that their chances of making any serious impact are not high. I mean, we know, you understand. Mm-hmm. But the fact remains that those of us who have said for quite some time that this country is gravitating towards becoming a two-party state, it looks like we are being vindicated, because you look at this array of candidates, some of them not even new, and you look at the figures coming through where they are scoring 0 in constituencies, and to be honest with you, you wonder why they will continue to do that, given what they likely knew and given what the data is saying, and yet they continue, which means that it cannot be because they are going to win, perhaps because they want to help influence and change policy, change attitudes, or, as I said, make themselves popular.
And in that breath, do you think they would have been successful in changing attitudes and policies? Take the PNC, for instance. It always prides itself as being, the party that mooted the NHIS agenda. You take, this election, I've heard the CPP, the PNC, and the PPP candidates say that, this whole free SHS thing that the opposition party seems to have ledged on come from one or the other of them. Would they have then been successful, even if they are not polling numbers, in reshaping the agenda?
I think that to a reasonable extent, perhaps that is where they've been successful, because it is true that some of the ideas that they have mooted have been co-opted by some of the main political parties, and we've all benefited, and that is the beauty of a multi-party system of democracy. But the last point I wanted to make is also the resource base, and I think that where the system of funding political parties is not fully borne by the public or the state, then the ability to raise enough resources to prosecute a truly national campaign also impacts on the outcome and the likely votes that you garner. I mean, the truth is that most of these parties are not even present across the length and breadth of the country. They are only limited to certain one or two major towns, and once you move out of them, they don't exist. I've been to parts of Ghana where, you know, they are just not there. And you ask people who they are and they don't even know. And so, yes, the financial aspect may also be something that has affected their ability to grow. But it is also quite likely that the political space has been dominated by now the NDC and the MPP. And of course, one is to the center of right and then the center of left. So what more room is there for, say, a very communist or socialist party to grow or an extreme right-wing party to grow? There isn't room. I think these are the issues.
Kweku may not agree with you. If you're on Facebook, facebook.com/joynewsontv or facebook.com/joy997. Give us your feedback. If you're on Twitter, our handle is @joynewsontv or @joy997. If you're sending us a text, it's 1760 or 1422. If you're on WhatsApp, it's 0544 334 We're streaming live on myjoyonline.com/myjoyonline. Tube. I'm told that our viewers in the US are waking up to join us. Kweku.
What is it that is stopping or preventing the PNC, the CPP, and to some extent the GCPP from merging into one entity? What is it that has stopped them from achieving that result, the objective, since 1992? I know they started off with many fragments, the PHP, the NIP, and all the rest. And there have been attempts to unify the Nkrumah's family along the line, with different aggregates coming out from the fragmented front. What is stopping? Each election shows, okay, that performance rate is getting down and down and down. And yet you have three parties claiming allegiance to the Nkrumah's tradition and insisting on operating separately, contesting separately. What is it that is preventing them? So there are a lot of people out there who think that, look, it's a wasted time vote. Why am I wasting my vote on three fragments that come from the same roots? Look at the Desma performance. So what is it? And as long as they are not able to unify even these fragments into one, it doesn't inspire confidence. It doesn't tell people that you are interested in building the future. In fact, that's why I was a bit disappointed when Dr. Indum left the CPP. I thought he was the most credible person within the CPP in terms of his leadership thing. That's my own opinion. There are a lot of others who disagree with me. But I thought that was just further fragmentation of the front, even though he says that his is essentially not an Nkrumah's creation and all the rest. But it's become part of the smaller parties. It has become part of it at the bottom line. So to be honest with you, if they aren't going to sit down and merge, then the future is very bleak. Okay, the NDC, whether we like it or not, and now that's part of my problem with the NDC in terms of the history, has captured the greater majority of the CPP constituencies. Most of the constituencies that the NDC wins are traditionally CPP constituencies. Okay? So a large segment of the Nkrumah's family are already in there for whatever reasons. In my candid opinion, politics of opportunism. That's the way I see it. You may disagree with me. But those of us who say we are not joining the NDC and will remain outside the NDC, let's do justice to our tradition by at least forming one entity. And you look at the personalities, very solid personalities. We don't have the electoral appeal now because of the fragmentation. But you look at the individuals, very solid, fine gentlemen, people who can plan and think, so that if we can put all this planning and thinking together at one base and start formulating the appropriate programs. You know, we need to modernize some of our perspectives. We need to change our strategies and the rest. Come election times, because parties are not for only elections. It's important to know that, yes, elections are important, but you must win power to be able to engineer a social change. So power is essential in our competitive contest. But long before elections, a lot of things happen. party education, political education, and all that, which eventually could impact on election results. If we were to get, consolidate our human resource base, these fine gentlemen and women, fine brains, some very resourceful, rather than doing what we are doing. You go and check PNC, check what happened to their general secretary in the Wa constituency. What happened? And I'm told our chairman has lost. Did he lose? Of course he would lose. If you look at the balance of forces in that constituency.
Doubling in what you know. That's not what the election headquarters was.
No, but I found out. And I'm told our own party chairman.
Yes, Samuel.
Yes.
It was.
That's what I saw it on your own. Yeah, it's sad. Lone Ranger there is gone. Now, if we are not careful, we don't get any seat. It means that come the next debate, we will not be taking part. So, it's sad, really sad. But I'm not sure you can ask them to cease operating as political parties because the Constitution allows them. So it is an inward thing. We should decide to do justice to our tradition by dissolving all these fragments into one entity, at least to give us ourselves another chance. This may be the last one if we don't reformulate our strategies. Go into extinction. Yes, possibly.
It seems the situation around Jolu or Airport West is getting a bit out of hand. We're told that the police have had to fire tear gas to try and disperse the crowds. Let me get to George Wiafe, who is on the line. George. Can you hear me, George?
I can hear you live and clear, Kojo.
What exactly is happening now?
Well, Kojo, the entrance that leads to the house that is there, there's a report or there are said to be some alleged manipulation going on. Some ambulances try to move from that lane to go to their destination, and some of the MPP supporters who are here try to prevent the vehicle from going. The argument is that they want to see what is in the vehicle before the vehicle leaves the said house or the said lane to its destination. And they put some stones on the road to try and block the vehicle from going. We saw some stones flying from somewhere. We didn't know where it was coming from. So the police were forced to fire tear gas to disperse the crowd. And that's really got a situation out of hand here right now. And some of the supporters are throwing stones to the police. The police people also telling us to announce the security zone and we should move out of the area.
The police have now had to declare it a security zone and are asking everybody to move out of the area. But where are the party leaders who were there initially?
They were trying to control the crowd initially, but it appears that things got out of hand in about just 5 minutes ago, and that is when they had to fire the tear gas and all those things.
So have the crowds been dispersed now?
Well, the crowd is moving to a different place now because the police are telling us that everybody should move. So they're trying to drive us towards the main road, the road that leads to President Kufuor's house now, Kojo.
Now, these ambulances you talk about, did you see them for yourself or you were just told of them?
I saw them when I went to the house that they claim that, or it's alleged that some machines are there which are said to be verifying the results. These ambulances, one don't know why they came here, whether it was for whether anything should happen. These people can control or take any injuries out there. We didn't know why the ambulances came here. So they were numbering about 4 actually, Kojo, and we're moving from that lane that our house is to their destination. And the supporters of the MPP said that they will not allow them to go unless they see whatever is in that ambulance. And that is when things actually got out of hand and they had to fire tear gas to disperse the crowd. So the crowd is being pushed to the main lane that leads to former President John Kufuor right now.
Okay, now, just so we have clarity, yes, the ambulances were going through that lane, but do we know whether or not they were going to or coming from that particular premises?
They were coming from the house, which is alleged that there's been some manipulation going on, Kojo. So they were parked in front of that house. They were numbering about 3 vehicles. These are the national ambulance cars.
Okay, George.
Okay, I'll keep you updated if anything should happen. But the police are trying their best to manage the crowd, but it appears that things are getting out of hand now because the crowd is also very agitated, Kojo.
But the premises is intact. It hasn't been tampered with.
It's intact, Kojo.
I hear you.
They barricaded the lane that leads into that house, actually.
I hear you, George, and I thank you for that quick update. George Wiafe reporting from Airport West, or what some call Jowulu. He tells us that a number of ambulances were coming out of that particular property that's been in dispute for a few hours now. And the supporters or the crowds there said they were not going to let it go out until they had an opportunity to verify what was in there. And that led to a bit of an engagement. The police have had to fire tear gas to push them back for the ambulances to move. Kweku?
Yeah, so as long as we have this kind of system, this first past the post, system, no proportional representation, these minor parties, smaller parties if you want, must find a way of congregating, consolidating their resources. And I think that then they might...
But you also know the inner workings of these parties. Does it sound to you like the persons at the helm of affairs of these parties are really interested in this consolidation exercise?
It's part of the problem, the human element, that ambition is part of the problem.
Is it ego or selfishness?
It's part of the problem. I wouldn't say the sole one, but it's part of the problem. Because otherwise, why? From 1992, various efforts to unite these three parties, okay? Why is it impossible to do so? So but I was thinking that, they'll be educated through the negative experiences over the years. You'd realize that, look, there's no prospect running these elections on your own and wasting too much money and dispiriting people, gradually. So you open the chance for the guys to move out, to join the two main parties. So to be honest with you, it's a disappointment, but maybe, as I said, education by negative experience.
Chief, is that what's going to work? Or perhaps, because if you look at the numbers so far, in spite of the fact that the CPP and the PNC have been around, Dr. Papakwesi-Num's PNC is making PPP is making the strongest showing among the smaller parties so far. While everybody is polling 0.00 or 0.11, his PPP is polling 0.68 so far.
The CPP away. Which one?
You see, I'm not ready to proffer any, if you like, courses or advice as to why the smaller parties find themselves in the state in which they find themselves. But visibility is very important in politics. These smaller parties are not visible. If you take the CPP, for example, for the fact that Kwame Nkrumah is whoever he was, why should the CPP be suffering? Virtually everything in Ghana until recently is Nkrumah. So why can't the name Nkrumah propel the party? The name Nkrumah cannot propel the party because if you don't penetrate and get to the ordinary man, make the party visible, make the party a force to reckon with in national discourse, in off-season political talk, then you are just deluding yourselves. I sincerely think that some of these smaller parties also just want to be centers of power. It's an industry for some people, and so if you are a presidential candidate, it's an opportunity to raise funds, some of which will go into your pockets. Really? Kojo, don't let us mince words.
I thought it was for God and country.
For God and country.
Yeah. You are unfair.
I'm not talking about any particular party.
Yeah, but you are not providing any evidence. So and that's why you are not mentioning names.
That's why I'm not mentioning names. This is not actionable. This is not actionable. All I'm saying is that these parties need to get serious. They need to know that if you want to govern, why, for instance, all these smaller parties, did they field candidates in all the constituencies, for example?
No.
So how do you expect to perform?
That's the first sign.
How do you expect to perform? You have your strengths that you need to leverage. Is it that, okay, you don't want to contest the presidency, but you want to build on parliamentary for a period just to show yourselves up? How attractive are you to new voters? Every child in Ghana who has gone to school has read about Kwame Nkrumah and his role in Ghana's independence. So why is it that when they transition to 18 and above, a lot of them don't want to vote for the CPP, for example? There is something that is not connecting, and I'm not going to sit here and try and split hairs over it. The PPP has done well because it is the Indom factor. The question is that, let the PPP also ask itself, assuming without admitting, touch wood, the way we all go one day, if Dr. Indom is not around today, would the CPP be able to stand? I have come to learn a lesson. Parties that are built on personalities would never ever survive. Go to Zambia.
Isn't it the same
go
argument
to
that was
Zambia.
made for the NDC at a point that parties built
the
around
NDC
personalities
has
won't
been lucky,
survive?
let me tell you.
It was built around
No,
Jerry
let me tell you,
Rawlings.
the NDC has
Jerry
been lucky.
Rawlings is not today, a
No,
dominant
the
force in the
NDC has been
NDC,
lucky.
but it's surviving.
Jerry Rawlings went out of office, and the NDC has been able to win, if you like, the 2008 elections, albeit with the help of Mr. Rawlings, operating for a certain
I'm
corner.
not sure what you said is in reference to the CPP.
No.
No, you're talking about the PPP.
No. I just
But
mentioned
you made a general statement.
but
I'm asking whether you think that is in reference to CPP as well.
It is true.
How?
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you.
1979.
I was going to come to 79.
We did not have the personality of
I agree.
Here. We had the organizational structure of the party.
I agree.
And we had the old guards who also knew the field.
Why not?
And how to organize a party. And we won.
Yeah, but you also cannot blame the fact that the UP tradition, because of the UNC PFP divide.
Oh, no.
It allowed, it gave a certain advantage.
The UNC was not a wholesale UP party. You know that.
Anyway, can
you
I
know
finish?
that. No. That's the fact.
But
so that is a fallacy the UP ideologues push to rationalize.
I'll finish.
There's a fallacy that they push to rationalize the electoral defeat of 1979. Look, the UNC was like the NAL or the NDC. Most of the strong guys in the UNC, were dominant in the Volta region.
Oh, yes, of course.
And in the Eastern region, few of them.
Of course.
And some of them today are in the NDC.
Of course.
So the UNC was not a wholesale UP party. That's a fact.
But the principle of organization is what might allow some of these parties to survive.
He brought in this UNC thing, and I wanted the history to be said right.
But loud all over Africa. Apart from 1 or 2 instances, go to Zambia, United National Independence Party of Kaunda. Kaunda is alive. What has happened? What has happened to UNIP?
The NDC.
You go to Tanzania. Chama Pinduzi. Nyerere has died. But you know what? Nyerere transition. Nyerere left office and handed over, and there's been successive, leaders.
Nyerere didn't suffer a coup d'etat.
No, I haven't said that.
The PNP suffered a coup d'etat, and the regime that took over had 11 years. Had 11 years. During that 11 years, it sucked into the CPP family. Indeed, the PNDC is a hybrid, as Jasana actually described. It's a hybrid. UP elements, CPP elements, and the new generation Rawlings elements.
You see, Chief's points is not necessarily what you are contesting. The issue is the modern CPP continues to evoke the name of Kwame Nkrumah instead of focusing on strategy.
Earlier on, I said we should modernize some of our
That's
perspectives.
Right. That's right. So the point I wanted to make is that you guys are actually not disagreeing. It's the way you are. It's the way you are.
I know him very well.
So all I'm saying is that let's build parties around concepts
and issues
and ideas, rather than on the personality kind of thing. If the strongman concept, I think Obama has came to Ghana and told us, we all know it, but he had to take him and say, let's focus on building strong institutions rather than strong personalities. We have had an issue in this country where people like to be big fishes in a very small pond. That is how kind of PNC and the CPP, for example, are not able to merge, because everybody wants to hold on to a certain corner and do their own thing. You understand? And I'm saying that. Let's transition properly for the smaller parties. And even the PPP. I'm going to throw a challenge to Dr. Indu. As far as he's alive, and I thank God for his life, let him continue, if really he wants this project to outlive him, to build structures and a successive, succession plan. Let people, the youth, let them build up and know that, look, they have the independence of thought to do things. Otherwise, beyond Dr. Indum, I do not see how the PPP...
But their current performance, I'm sure, is far below their expectation.
I agree, but I'm saying that. But it has done better than even some of the older, smaller parties.
22%.
Yes, at this stage. So I'm saying that let the smaller parties take note that Ghana's politics is changing.
That one. Right.
Ghana's politics is changing. It's not about personalities anymore. It is about, operational, as people will call it, organization. But if you also organize and you allow one man alone, founder, everything, one day, if that man is not there,
you'll be in trouble. Dr. White, what's your prescription?
You'll be in trouble very soon, because it was the same arguments I made some time back, and I was bashed for claiming that the PPP is not a credible, third force, and I was told that on what basis. But we are seeing it now in the results that are coming. I think in politics, expediency matters, and we need to be realistic too. These smaller parties, gradually, the window of opportunity is closing on them as far as their relevance in our politics is concerned. As I indicated yesterday, the problem is both structural and behavioral. Structural because the winner takes all electoral system automatically reconfigures voters' thinking. Rational as we are, people want to identify with the party that has a potential chance of winning, although philosophically and ideologically they may have their leanings somewhere else. And so unless and until the smaller parties have proven, and so far they haven't done that they have the capacity to organize, mobilize, strategize, and win elections, they shouldn't expect people to naturally gravitate towards them. The second thing has to do with human resource. Look, when you look at this campaigning process, what is happening? You see the NDC and the MPP on a Saturday on almost all the TV and radio programs, they have personalities there. If you come to the CPP and the PPP, if Dr. Abu Sankara or Dr. Pakwesidu himself is not present at any of these programs, nothing happens. And if they are present at these programs, on all other programs, there is no showing for them. Clearly, it raises a question of whether they have the human capacity to form a government. And for a lot of people who are thinking through this thing, you will realize automatically that I like this kind of... Frankly, throughout the debates and everything, everybody will agree that Dr. Pakwesidu and Dr. Abu Sankara are two individuals that really, really have been able to push certain ideas forward. But at the end of the day, look at the showing.
While at that, for all that we've discussed this morning, give me your final comments. I'll give you 30 seconds each. For all that we know, 22% of the registered votes have come in so far. We're having a few issues managing what's happening around Jol. We're hoping the security agencies would handle it pretty well. The voting is going on. We haven't had any wrong reports. We're still trying to get information about how the boxes were kept overnight and whether or not there are any worrying stories. You put all of these together, what are your final thoughts as we wrap up Newsfile this morning? Chief?
Well, I think that we are not there yet because of the hiccups we've seen and the challenges that are coming up. I pray that the voting that is going on as we speak will be according to book and that adequate security will be provided. I don't know if you want me to also put my neck out and say who I think in my estimation will win.
No, I don't want you to do that now. We have agreed that 22% is what you would say. We have agreed that 22% is early days.
That's why I came.
We're going to shoot up to about...
he has some other...
We can see. We can see, but we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
Well, I think that at the end of the day, like all elections, there will be a winner and a loser. And the will of Ghanaians will ultimately prevail at the end of the day. The process have indicated that 20 years down the line, we still have some challenges and that we need to be able as a nation to think through. It also demonstrates that legislations that are crafted to regulate human behavior need to be given thorough and critical thinking so as not to repeat the kind of situation we have encountered in these elections at all.
Well, I would just like to call for cooler heads to prevail. It is a process to move us forward as a people. And if and when the results are declared, we should celebrate as a nation. And of course, we will move on. There will be another opportunity come 4 years for those who are not going to be victorious to give it another try. We are not going to be better off destroying our country. Then we wouldn't have a chance to continue this experiment, which has challenges, but we would work through it. So let's be calm. And the media should continue to be very circumspect about the type of information that it puts in the public domain. And I must commend you. You've done a wonderful job so far on that.
I believe in Ghana. I think that this country...
Which one, the political one, or this is your...
I believe in Ghana. Why are you trying to decipher what I said? I believe in Ghana, and I think that this country would be the ultimate winner. There will be peaceful, free and fair, competitive election. I wouldn't be surprised, even though the figures don't show it now because of the performance of the minority, the smaller groups. But I wouldn't be surprised if we go for a runoff.
I hear you. Yeah. We're going to have to end it here right now. Our word out there to you is to keep it calm, keep it easy. There are challenges in life at every stage, but the key thing is just to address them. It doesn't help to be hot-headed. And for the leaders in particular, show leadership. We thank you.